Before we start, the name is at the top of the screen. This story is being remade because everyone said I messed up the first time. And a little extra piece of story is added at the end. This is a world both like and unlike Earth. It's inhabited by races they would never find on Earth, and Draconians are regarded as the most powerful of them all. And you might ask yourself, what exactly am I doing in this world? You might want to know how this came about. Her name is Ruri Morikawa. And she used to be a normal Japanese college girl. Well, she said normal, but she has got a foreign model for a mom and a diplomat for a dad. With her Japanese features and good looks from both parents, she heard the kind of prospects that would make anyone want to fist pump. But she thinks that used up most of her luck in life. Sadly, she never got to purely enjoy what life had to offer. In fact, she grew up with an albatross around her neck. And it is all because of her. Her name is Asahi Shinomiya. She is an old friend who grew up next door to her. They were the same age. Admittedly, Asahi is extremely adorable. She is pretty much universally adored, to the point that it gets kind of weird. Asahi looks at her doll and says it is so cute. Wiggling her fingers, she started saying she wants her doll. Ruri asked if she wanted to trade. She immediately clutched her own treasure protectively and shook her head, saying no, this one was hers. An awkward silence followed. Then Ruri tilted her head and asked if she wanted both. Her face lit up instantly, and she answered yes without hesitation. Ruri stared at her flatly and said that wasn't happening. Another silence fell. Then she burst into tears, loud enough to draw everyone's attention. Ruri knew she was technically in the right, but that didn't matter. Everyone got mad at her anyway and demanded she hand it over. For some reason it always planned out like that. Then Ruri stood there trembling when the people took her long enough look. Why? She kept getting treated like dirt over and over again. Even in elementary school. One day Asahi casually said that she wanted to have hair like hers. But the school rules were no dyeing their hair. Still, the next day she dyed her hair the same color. And the teacher lashed out at her that it was her hair's fault that made Asahi want to copy them. And the teacher told her to dye her hair despite the rules, and then Ruri ended up dyeing them black. It was always like this, every single time, in middle school and in high school. Nothing ever changed. One day when she was lost, the teacher got mad at her for not keeping an eye on Asahi. Baffled, Ruri could only think that she wasn't even in her class. She has had enough. She couldn't keep living like this. She has to put an end to this for good. She decided to get into college and free herself from this misery. So she studied very hard to get into a college, way too hard for Asahi to get into. And she was accepted. But by some twist of fate she found Asahi living in the apartment building where she was staying. And her life was over like that. She found herself walking to school with Asahi every morning when they went to different colleges. And why were all of Asahi's group glaring daggers at her? She tried anything to get away from her. She made shrine donations every new year. She even bought a sketchy vase. Or, well, she hadn't tried witchcraft yet. One day, while they were walking, Ruri suddenly froze in disbelief. Tiny bells were scattered all around them. She stared, confused, wondering why no one else seemed to see them or hear them ringing. Before she could say anything, light began to seep out from the ground beneath their feet. It grew brighter and brighter until it was blinding. She covered her eyes, heart pounding. When the light finally faded, the world had changed. She found herself on her knees. Inside a church. People were shouting excitedly, calling out, "The priestess," and cheering that the ritual had been a success. Before she could even process it, they rushed past her, completely ignoring her, and grabbed Asahi's hand instead. Ruri thought, great, more of the same. Asahi, annoyingly enough, seemed perfectly fine with the situation. Way too fine. And that was when a thought crept into her mind. What if this was her chance? What if she just left Asahi here? She could finally be free. It was perfect, brilliant, even. She was a genius. So she calmly informed one of the men that if they only needed the priestess princess, she would very much like to go home now. Surely there had to be a way to arrange that. The man crushed her hopes instantly by replying, flatly, that there was no way to send her back. And just like that, both of them ended up living in another world whether they liked it or not. As the friend of the priestess princess, Ruri was treated well and provided for, but even so, there was far too much about this place that she didn't understand yet. Asahi jumped on her from behind, asking if she was still studying. She replied dryly, wondering if it would kill her to take this a little more seriously. She's learning a few things, at least. For one, this nation has magic. And also that her life is the same as always. A boy watched them with open envy and remarked that the priestess was still joined at the hip with Lady Ruri. Asahi replied cheerfully that it was because they were best friends. The boy began to tremble with fury. Ruri froze. Warning! Warning! Danger! Danger! Every bone in her body screamed it at once. One could never be too careful, especially not now. Before she could react, guards swarmed in, seized her, and dragged her away. Moments later, she found herself kneeling before the king, asking calmly, because panic never helped, what crime she had committed exactly. The king looked confused and turned to ask what it was again. The prince pointed straight at her. He declared that she was always by the priestess's side, and therefore must be plotting to kill the princess. Ruri protested that it was completely ridiculous. The king ordered her to be silent. There were witnesses. Another stepped forward and claimed he had heard her complain that it wasn't fair Asahi received royal treatment, and that she was so jealous she wanted her dead. The king called it utter depravity and pronounced her sentence, banishment to Valewood. She already knew the answer, yet she still asked if Asahi knew about this. The prince answered smoothly that of course she didn't. How could anyone tell the sweet princess that her dear friend wished for her death? As far as Asahi would know, Ruri had simply grown tired of the castle and run away. Ruri stared at him blankly. The look irritated him. He snapped, asking what that expression was supposed to mean. Then the guards dragged her off to be banished. As she was taken away, she thought dryly that the joke was on them. That wouldn't be nearly enough to convince Asahi to stay away from her. She was dumped in the middle of nowhere. The fools hadn't even bothered to cut off her robes before leaving her there. Why did life keep testing her like this? She sank to the ground, utterly exhausted. It was an entirely expected development. Still, she couldn't help wondering, had she done something truly awful in her past life to deserve this? She is not the world's worst survivalist. She could probably get by on her own in the woods. But she's not gonna be doing much of anything unless she can get these ropes off. But robes fall apart on their own, leaving her shocked. It even looks like it was cut with a knife. She looked up when a strange sound cut through the forest. Bells. They were the same ones she had heard before. For a brief moment, she wondered if they were calling to her, then dismissed the thought as ridiculous. Still, the sound was coming from the opposite direction of the castle. With no better idea, she followed the ringing. The bells led her deeper into the forest. Along the way, she stumbled upon a stream and hesitated, wondering if the water was drinkable. She tasted it cautiously. It tasted fine. For some reason, whenever she follows the sound of the bells, she always lucks out and stumbles across food and water. She ate fruit from the trees as she went. They were good, ripe, nourishing. She kept moving like that for days. 5, she thought. According to a map she'd seen in the castle, they had been summoned to a human nation called the Kingdom of Nadasha. To the northeast lay a vast country inhabited by so-called demi-humans. If her sense of direction wasn't completely broken, she had been heading that way this whole time. Well, she would figure something out once she got there. By now, she was deep in the forest. Too deep. Wild beasts could appear at any moment, and she didn't even have a weapon. Magic would have been useful, something flashy, like fire. Something like what that guy had done. And then fire burst from her hand. Flames erupted in a violent surge, forcing her to stumble back in shock. Her heart hammered as she stared at her own trembling fingers. She remembered the priest's smug words that magic required special training and rare talent. Those who wielded it were granted status and prestige. There was no way she should be able to use it. She tried again. Fire answered her call. Now she was truly confused. The sound of the bells grated on her nerves. Finally, she snapped, shouting for them to shut up already. She spun around and staggered back. A strange creature stood before her, looming and growling low in its throat. Her mind went blank. God, she thought faintly, what did I ever do to deserve this? Ruri Morikawa, a beautiful yet tragically misfortunate heroine, got dragged along with the walking jinx. Asahi was summoned to a strange land. After being treated as a third wheel and dumped in the middle of the woods, she is being chased by a monster. She screams, demanding to know why it has to be her. This sucks. Completely. She runs, shouting over her shoulder that she doesn't even taste good anyway. The creature, unsurprisingly, does not care. She can't keep running like this. Her legs shake, and she knows very clearly that she is going to die if this continues. Moments later, her strength gives out and she crashes to the ground. Then something strange happens. It feels like she passes through a thin membrane. She gasps and scrambles upright, heart pounding, and looks around in a panic. Where is the monster? To her shock, it stands nearby, looking around in confusion, unable to see her at all. She exhales shakily. Whatever that was, it doesn't matter. She's safe, for now. A small house stands nearby, tucked into the forest. Honestly, it feels far too good to be true. Inside, food is set in front of her. She blurts out that it's delicious, tears springing to her eyes. The old woman watching her sighs and asks if she plans to eat or cry, because she really needs to choose one. She sniffs and asks if there's meat to go with it. The woman says that she scared the life out of her. She thought she had sent someone into the forest, only to have Rory collapse right in front of her when she went to check. Rory says what did she think would happen when she turned around and saw an old hag covered in blood standing behind her. The old lady says, "Is she calling her a hag?" Angry, she snapped. She was right in the middle of dressing some game when she showed up. She murmurs Chelsea is a really cute name for such an old hag. She says she told her not to call her that. This is Chelsea. She looks like a little scary, but she's a kind regular granny. After she called her a hag and passed out, she tended to her until she came to. And now she's even providing her with a warm meal. The lady says that is quite a story, though she never did like Nadasha much, but goodness gracious. She doesn't know what all that prophecy talk is about. But really, kidnapping people from another world? Rory, shocked, asks how does she know? She never said anything about that. The granny replies that is simple enough, the fairies told her. Rory looks around for the said fairies. The granny asks she cannot see them, and points in the air saying there is a whole bunch in here. But she finds nothing there, no matter how hard she focuses. Nothing at all. The granny hums knowingly. So she doesn't see them, does she? From what the old woman can tell, she has a tremendous amount of innate magical power. She just isn't using it properly. If the fairies are invisible to her, it's because her magic isn't tuned the right way. She frowns, thinking about that. Is magic really like that? Do you picture something clearly enough, and then it simply happens? Like the feeling she had earlier, right before the fire appeared. She tries. There is something there. Invisible or not, she knows it. She focuses on that thought, I want to see it, and opens her eyes. Fairies. They're everywhere, fluttering through the air in soft glimmers of light. Her mouth falls open in pure disbelief and awe. She promptly falls off her chair. Groaning, she clutches her side as the fairies rush toward her in a panic, asking if she's alright. She waves them off and says yes, she's fine, then freezes. Wait. They can talk. The granny says of course they can. And now she can see them too. Their wavelengths must be in sync. That explains absolutely nothing. Before she can ask, the old woman continues, asking if she'd mind telling her about this Asahi girl before she goes out the door. The fairies try to help, but their explanations are abstract and impossible to follow. She hesitates. Talking about something this personal with someone she's just met feels strange. And yet she ends up telling Kelasi everything. How she was summoned. What happened at the castle. Asahi this, Asahi that. By the end of it, the granny says that sounds rough. That's all it takes. She cracks, ranting that she doesn't understand it. Everyone always sides with Asahi. Everyone treats her like the villain. Every time she tries to get away, Asahi sticks to her like she's been slathered in glue. She can't escape her. At this rate, Asahi is going to cling to her all the way down the aisle at her own wedding. The granny says she can understand why Asahi would act that way. She blinks. Why? The old woman says because she gives off a very pleasant wavelength. Rory says she was talking about that before. The granny explains basically it is the quality of her magic. Wavelength matters more than quantity when it comes to magic powers. She has got fairies of all different affinities gathering around her. That goes to show how widely favor her wavelength is among different kind of fairies. She has a high quality wavelength. Rory asks if that means Asahi wouldn't leave her alone because their wavelength resonated so well. She replies it is not every day they see so many fairies scrambling to go to someone's aid. She's betting she had a lot of help in the forest. They find it quite pleasant to be around her, she is sure Asahi does too. She grumbles to herself so basically there's no escape ever. The granny says one other thing and to take this with a grain of salt. This girl, Asahi, Has she ever considered that she might be using a magic spell? That catches her attention. A magic spell? The granny says the way everyone around Asahi behaves, it rings a bell for her. That sounds like a charm spell. Charm is a control spell that makes people like them, even those who normally wouldn't. Spells don't work when they cast them on someone with more magic power than her. Along with their high-quality wavelength, they also have an enormous pool of magic power. Small wonder her magic wouldn't work on them. She realizes that would definitely go a long way towards explaining everyone's blind devotion to her. But she has a hard time believing that Asahi would manipulate people on purpose. She mutters, let's just say her mind is one big flower bed. She doesn't think she has an ounce of ill will in her body. The granny says it can be possible that she is using it unwillingly. Ruri asks if she's got that kind of natural gift. Does that mean she really is the priestess princess? The granny replies she doesn't know much about that sort of thing, but a person like her who is so beloved by the fairies is far more intriguing to her than some girl who can use charm. She fits the bill in terms of rare coloring. Her hair and eyes are both very rare colors. Then again, people with both black hair and black eyes are also quite rare in this world, so she cannot rule Asahi out either. The nanny rises and says that, in any case, she can hardly ignore all this talk of prophecy and whatever she has. She pulls out a pen and paper and begins to write. The letter is addressed to her grandson. He works at Dracodum Castle. She wants answers. About that Asahi girl. About the prophecy. She asks him to look into it properly. When she finishes, she folds the paper and drops it into something that definitely should not function as a mailbox. Ruri stares at it, stunned. The granny nods casually and says yes, she just mailed it. That's when it hits her. This is real. She is truly in another world. This Dracodum, where Chelsea's grandson works, is a large nation. It is ruled by Draconians. A race of beings who can switch between dragon and human forms. There is another race known as beast men, whose bodies are somewhere between animals and humans. They are collectively called Devi humans, and many humans harbor prejudices against them. The granny says that especially true in Nadasha, which is an all-human nation, yet in the Dracodam, humans and demi-humans live together with prejudice. She thinks the Dragon King who rules them must be a very understanding person. She asks her if the Dragon King might know a way to send her back to her world. The granny says she has some bad news for her. There's no way to send her back. Ruri softly asks if she means that she doesn't know or there is not. After a pause, the granny admits they were not forcibly pulled here like her. But there are some others, people who fell out of their own words, and not one of them has made it back to where they came from. It is simple enough to fall in, but they have to abandon their form, to climb back out. That is an old quote from someone who fell here with their memories of their home still intact. There is no way of returning to their worlds without first dying in this one. She is sorry, but she will just have to let it go. That night, she stares at the ceiling. She cannot go home. She says so. She got pretty much the same answer from that snipe priest, but still, she didn't want to believe it. She was clinging to a tiny hope. That is just great. What should she do now? Anger surges, unwelcome and sudden. None of this is even remotely her fault. She was summoned to another world, then she got framed for treason, and then she was thrown into the woods and chased by a wild beast. This is beyond absurd, and the reason goes without saying. That ID or-headed flowers for brains Asahi. Along with her jerk, prince and her groupies threw her out into a strange land all alone. And the king and priest too. The more she thinks about it, the angrier she gets. She's not gonna take this lying down. If she cannot go back home, she's gonna at least have to find a way to distract herself from thinking about all the crap they put her through. Ruri is no shrinking violet. The next day she tells the granny she knows she's imposing on her, but she will do anything. Cleaning, laundry, cooking, she name it. In return, she let her stay by her side and teach her more about this world. She is ready to unite. The granny casually says sure, why not? Ruri looks surprised. That was quick, is she sure? Shouldn't she be more wary of strangers? The granny says she brings up that now. She's living in a big old empty nest here. It's nice having her around to liven things up. Besides, the fairies are so taken with her, she would lose their blessings entirely if she kicked her out. She jumps in happiness and thanks the fairies as well. Wiping her tears, she says Chelsea is so nice. Even if she does look like a mean old hack. The granny snaps maybe she should kick her out after all. The granny then dismisses her, telling her to go clean up and she will make breakfast. She runs around, leaping and swiping at the fairies, and the granny watches her with a relieved sigh. Not long after, a reply letter arrives. She thinks it is impressively fast for Joshua, but as she reads, her face tenses. Her grip tightens around the letter. This is not news she can afford to ignore. Here in the forest, her day begins at dawn. She has been living under Chelsea's roof for days now. He has been loving every minute of it. To start, she figured she should learn some magic in order to get by, and maybe for revenge. She asked Granny if she could teach her magic, but the Granny told her to first envision what she wants to do in her mind, and then ask the fairies to do that. She gave her a shocked look. That's it? Whether their division always comes true or not depends on the quantity and wavelength of the user's magic power. For example, even if all she wanted was to create some water, if she has poor compatibility with water fairies, they won't help her. The Granny says if she doesn't have much raw power, a compatible wavelength compensates for that. Though honestly having a wavelength which fairies like is what's more important. She summons water, but way too much comes out, splashing everything around. The Granny sighs and says she needs more practice. She quickly replies, "Yes, ma'am." Her vengeance has barely begun. The Granny approaches while she is busy preparing a bath. She pauses mid-motion when she feels that look, odd, measuring. The Granny asks what exactly all this is supposed to be. She explains, very happily, that every Japanese girl requires a proper hot soak to relax. It is non-negotiable. The Granny mutters that she had been wondering what she was doing so early in the morning. She replies just so she knows she made the hot water with magic. No fire magic involved. The Granny says she should hope not. The last thing she needs is her house burning down. After a moment, the Granny says there is something she wants to ask. She knows Natasha treated her terribly, but does she actually hate that place? She considers it. All the humiliation. The false accusations. Being dragged out and dumped in the wilderness. Yes. She hates it. She says her current objective is vengeance. The Granny asks, carefully, what kind of vengeance? She answers without hesitation, she wants to make them cry. The Granny blinks. Wait, what? She elaborates. She will make them grovel. Ashahi. The king. The priest. The prince. The other students. The guards who kicked her out. She wants them lined up neatly so she can punch every single one of them. The Granny says. That's it? She pauses, then admits maybe that is not enough. She had been in mortal danger, after all. Perhaps she should throw in a roundhouse kick. Or two. Or maybe shave the tops of their heads and parade them through town, tied together like wartime deserters. The old woman groans and says she gets that she is harmless for sure, but Rory says she thought she was being pretty harsh herself. The Granny says when people talk about vengeance, they usually mean torture or wiping out a nation. Or hanging the whole royal family. She blurts that is a little extreme. The Granny explains that when people usually talk about vengeance, they mean torture. Or genocide. Or hanging the entire royal family. She blurts out that that sounds a little extreme. The Granny nods, satisfied. In that case, she has a favor to ask. Magic has already stopped working across Natasha. Completely. The fairies no longer respond to calls. She looks shocked and asks why the fairies whisper to her that they were mean to her. She sharply turns to the fairies and they say they punished them. She wanted vengeance, right? They hate people who are mean to them. The Granny groans. Good grief, that is what she was afraid of. Magic stopped working in the very same day she got left in the woods. She was hoping there was another explanation. Rory asks if she caused this. She replies yes. Rory says so the fairies are boycotting the whole country because of her. Granny says in this world the loss of magic is a matter of life and death. She is sure she would know this by now, but they need the power of the fairies to get by in everyday life. In Natasha, only a select few people like priests can use magic to any meaningful extent. But even then, being unable to access the fairies' power is throwing the realm into chaos. If her idea of revenge doesn't involve destroying the nation of Natasha, then could she please call the fairies off? Rory thinks she's right. She said she wanted revenge, but she doesn't want to destroy the country. The idea that just losing their magic would throw a whole country into chaos sounds a little fishy to her. She asks the fairies if they could call off the boycott. All of them say in union. Confused, she asks them what do they mean by One of them says how come he thought she wanted vengeance. She replies. Yeah she does, but that is personal. She would rather make them sorry herself, so she would kinda prefer if they could stay out of it. They quickly ask if they are bad and repeat if they are bad fairies. She quickly raises her hands in surrender when they nearly start crying. She tells them of course not, she's very grateful to all of them. And if push comes to shove, she will ask for their help. At least, she thinks she will. They say okay, they will. The granny then calls out to her and says she's going to warn her. As she is sure she has just figured out, the fairies will jump into action the moment anything happens to her. Soon enough, she will encounter people who want to use her power for their own ends. For her part, she will impart all the knowledge she can to her. But the rest is up to her. If she doesn't want to be used, she will have to figure out herself how to tell right from wrong. She smiles nervously, asking her if she is sure that it is in her best interests to tell her. Rory points out she still doesn't know she could have been that someone to use her if she wanted. The granny says oh please, she doesn't need the hassle. After that Chelsea kept teaching her lots of stuff. Also that beast who was chasing her through the woods, turns out he wasn't trying to eat her at all. He just liked her wavelength so much that he had been following her from the moment she entered the woods. Eventually he got overeager and showed himself to her. Then he caught himself. Apparently he felt very bad about spooking her. The other day he bought her the way she had lost in the woods to make it up to her. She wondered why isn't he coming closer. The granny told her she maintained a barrier around her house. After being assured by the fairies that he wouldn't attack her, she stepped out of the barrier. According to the fairies, he was sneaking around behind her and protecting her in the woods from danger or something. She asks the fairies why didn't they tell her sooner. One of them shrugs and says they forgot. So with all that clarified, she asked Chelsea to let him pass through her barrier. And that is how she got a huge pet here in this strange world. She named him Kataru. Rory picks up a mushroom and squints at it, asking the fairies what it is. The fairies tell her it is a poisonous mushroom. Undeterred, she pulls another one and asks what that is. The fairies float closer and warn her that it looks tasty, but if she eats it, her eyeballs will start twitching. Also poisonous, one adds, just a different kind. Rory gathers all the items and presents them to the granny. The granny studies the pile and remarks that it is quite a haul. Rory explains that she planned to sell things at the market, so everyone chipped in to help. She asks the granny what any of it might be worth. The granny mutters that she really needs to teach this girl some appraisal skills or it will end in disaster. She turns to Rory and says that these are highly rare herbs and fruits, and putting them all up for sale at once would crash the market. Rory blinks and asks if they are really that rare. The granny says nothing for now, adding that she will just take half to the market and Rory will have to figure out what to do with the rest before it spoils. Suddenly, the granny tosses something, and a huge shimmering circle appears. It rushes toward her, and Rory panics, pulling the granny back. She asks in shock what just happened. The granny explains that she opened a space pocket. Rory's eyes widen. She repeats the words, space pocket, like she can hardly believe them. The granny calmly explains that a space pocket is a simple spell any child with magic power can perform. It connects to another world, stops time for whatever is inside, and preserves it perfectly. Rory says it sounds like a magical fridge. The granny looks at her skeptically, but Rory insists on trying it. Focusing hard, Rory opens her own space pocket. She leans forward and pokes her head inside. The granny yelps and demands that she get out immediately. Rory replies that she just wants to see inside. Chelsea mutters to herself about how insane it is to stick one's head in a space pocket. Rory shrugs, pointing out that it is actually spacious and bright. The fairies zip around her, telling her it is fine to come in. The granny studies them warily but decides that if the fairies say it is okay, it probably is. As they step inside, everything is wide. The walls, the ceiling. So that is what it looks like on the inside. She turns to see the fairies but none of them are there. She doesn't see anyone at all. Who could have called them here? She murmurs, where did the fairies go? A voice answers her, calm and clear, it was her who called them. She freezes, her heart skipping a beat, as a girl materializes out of thin air, shimmering into existence before her very eyes. She blurts, who is she? But God knows what comes into her mind as in the next second she starts screaming ghost, but the granny quickly tells her no, it is a fairy. She quickly apologizes, saying she's very scared of box and ghosts. No, that's not what she meant. She didn't think she was a fairy. The fairy looks hurt that she mistook her for a ghost. In her defense, she says she has never seen a big fatty before. The granny says a fairy appearance changes according to the amount of magic power they hold. The fairies she usually sees are of a lower rank. The fairy says, leaving that matter aside, just like rumored, her magic power is very strong. Not many people would be able to create a dimensional space as large as this one. She heard the other fairies speak of her and her power, so she really wanted to speak to her. Even though she wanted to meet her really badly, she wasn't able to leave here, so she's happy she stopped by. Rory asks her how come she couldn't see her. Cannot she leave this place? Right now, this space is connected to the outside world through the portal she made. Does she want to go with her? The fairy thanks her but says it is impossible for her, since she is the fairy of time. The granny screams the fairy of time in disbelief. Rory glances at her and asks why is she shouting so suddenly. She really startled her. The granny says like she would be able to keep her voice down in this situation. She is the fairy of time from the legends. Well, she wouldn't know the legends, would she? According to the legends, the fairy of time never shows herself in front of people. She was rumored to be nothing but a myth. Rory brightens in excitement and asks the fairy if she is the fairy of the time, is she able to control the time itself? Like stopping or reversing the flow of time, or like being able to see what the world will look like 10 years from now? The fairy replies since it takes an incredible amount of magical power to control time, there simply is not enough magical power in the whole world to do these things. Rory asks, but doesn't time stand still in here? The fairy replies this space is her dominion. This space exists in a different dimension, so it is not tied to the flow of the time in her world. That's why everything planned here will stay in the same condition, unaffected by her flow of time. Rory says so that means if she stayed in here she would never age. The fairy says technically yes, but if living beings stay here long, it will have an adverse effect on their health. Like going insane, for one thing, and they also often become crippled. Rory gives a nervous smile and says it was nice talking to her. She starts to step away, then stops. She turns back, hesitation catching up to her, and asks if she is alone in here. Where are the other fairies? The fairy replies that there aren't any. She is alone. Sometimes she overhears the fairies outside chatting, but that is all. Rory asks how long it takes before that deterioration starts to kick in. Are they talking hours? Days? The fairy says she thinks it is safe enough as long as no one spends every day here. And since Rory has plenty of magic power, she believes she would be less susceptible than most. Rory smiles in relief. That is good to hear. In that case, she says she will drop by now and then to hang out. The fairy's eyes turn glassy as she asks what Rory is doing next. Rory replies that she is about to take a trip to the market. If she sees anything the fairy might need, she will buy it for her. It will be like half a surprise. The fairy asks in a shaky voice if that means Rory will come to see her again. Rory answers yes, of course. At that, tears spill down the fairy's cheeks, quiet and unguarded. When Rory steps back out, the granny asks if she is sure that is a promise she can keep. There is no telling whether it is truly safe for her. Rory answers that she is sure she cannot just leave her there. She thinks she understands that kind of loneliness. After all, the loneliness she has lived with herself cannot be so different from what the fairy has endured. At the market, Rory feels her mood lift at the sight of so many people. The granny tells her to stay close and reminds her of what she said before they came. She is serious about this. Rory replies that she is not a child. It will be fine. There is no need to keep repeating it. The marketplace is about a 5-day walk on foot from Chiziai's house. Rory asks about a wagon. The granny responds by asking why she would have one, and whether she thinks horses and stables simply appear out of nowhere. Rory stares at her in disbelief and asks how they are supposed to get there then. Is she going to warp them? The granny calls her a silly girl and transforms in one smooth motion into a massive dragon. She tells Rory to hurry up and climb on before she flies off without her. Rory stands there, frozen, staring at the dragon in disbelief. Riding on the dragon's back, or rather Chelsea's back, they reach the market within hours. Before entering town, the granny hands her a wig. She tells Rory her hair color is far too rare and orders her never to take it off while they are in town. She would rather not have her drawing the attention of the wrong people. A shiver runs through Rory as she asks if this world has trafficking. The granny replies that not in the Drakodom. But it is legal in plenty of other countries. She needs to stay on her toes at all times, especially around humans. She repeats especially around humans. The granny replies yes, especially around them. She tells her to take a look around, she has got a whole entourage of fairies. Who in their right mind would dare to try anything with her? Either humans with their low innate magic power and inability to see fairies. Or someone with a death wish. Those are the only two options. So she listened to her. She put on the wig like she told her. Why does it feel like everyone is staring at her? Did her wig come loose? Oh no, what if the dress the granny loaned her is like decades out of date? She stiffens when a child calls her mom and tells her to look at all the fairies following that lady. She remembers the granny words that a person like her who is so beloved by the fairies is far more intriguing to her. She looks at Chelsea and asks her if she is seen as some kind of exotic animal. The granny doesn't hesitate and replies basically yes. She asks herself, is a normal, uneventful life so much to ask for? When she says that. But how could she ever shoo? When she starts selling the herbs, people immediately gather around her stall. Someone asks if she gathered them herself. Another asks for one. Then another. Before she realizes it, she is surrounded on all sides. Everyone wants something. She freezes, unsure what to do. There are too many people, too many voices. One of the women lifts an herb and asks what it is used for. Rory panics and turns toward Chelsea for help. Chelsea calmly explains that it is a restorative remedy. It should be dried, ground into powder, steeped in hot water, and drunk. No sooner does that customer leave than another person points to a different herb and asks about that one. Again, Rory looks helplessly at the granny. The granny says that one is for stomach aches. It should be steamed and placed over the abdomen. The questions do not stop. What about this one? And this one? Each time, Rory turns, eyes wide, and each time the granny answers without missing a beat. For some reason, the requests only keep growing more baffling, piling up one after another. By the time she realizes it, every single item is gone. The stall is empty. Rory is exhausted. The fairies flutter around her, telling her she did well and that she worked hard. Rory thanks them, then asks, honestly and a little dazed, what exactly that was. The granny explains that it is because the fairies like her. It is extremely rare for fairies to favor someone so strongly. They wanted contact with her and with the goods she gathered. They were hoping that some of the fairies' power would spill over through her. Rory asks if fairy magic really works like that. The granny replies that it does not. Not in the literal sense. But then she adds that fairy magic is sentimental. In this world, sentiment is what makes things move forward. Fairy magic, in that way, makes the world go round, this world at least. And that is why fairies are revered as the powers that be. And the demi-humans can see fairies, so to them she is extraordinarily valuable. Everybody wants to associate with them as much as they can. Since she came to this world, the granny has taught her so much and she has felt like she has learned a lot. When the demi-humans learned she would be leaving so soon, they each press a gift into her hands and insist she take them. Overwhelmed, she turns to Granny for help but Granny only urges her to accept them. She protests that she hasn't paid for any of it. That's fine, Granny says easily. Good harvests come to lands where fairies gather. The ground grows more stable. Natural disasters become less likely. And if she returns again, the fairies will come with her, this land will be richer for it. Back in her own world, there were other names for beings with powers like that. Gods. Buddhas. If that was truly what she was seeing with her own two eyes. Did that mean she was somehow drawing such ludicrously powerful beings to herself? She sincerely hoped she wasn't getting in way over her head. She asks the granny what is the cherished one. The granny explains. To put it simply, the cherished one is a title given to people who are extraordinarily loved by the fairies just like her. The granny then reminds her she has been staying here for a while now. She used to talk about her revenge plan, but nothing has really happened. Doesn't she think that it is time for her to decide how she wants to live in this world? Rory asks because she is a cherished one. The granny replies yeah, though she really doesn't care either way. The granny says normally people marked as cherished ones are put under the protection of the country they are born in. Since if a cherished one is angered, the fairies won't stay calm about it. In the past there have been incidents where the anger of a cherished one led to the destruction of nations. So cherished ones often require special attention and surveillance. Basically, she can choose to get protection from any country she wants. They will treat her well since she will bring a lot of fairies and the land will prosper. Basically, it is very profitable to have a cherished one in the country so she can go wherever she wishes. Though she has not reported her existence to any countries yet, Rory asks how come. The granny says because she's not a person from this world. And since she lacks a proper understanding of how this world works, all these talks of things like protection and cherished ones is surely confusing. She thought it would be better to wait until she was a little more knowledgeable and calm and then ask what she wanted to do. Now Ruri understands why Chelsea wanted her to differentiate between what is right and wrong. Later, Ruri returns to her pocket space with a small box of freshly baked cookies. Lydia's expression brightens the moment she sees her, surprise and happiness flickering across her face. She had not expected Ruri to stop by again so soon. Ruri scans the space around her. She asks whether the number of things stored here has increased. The table is no longer visible. Lydia tells her that does not matter. Her dimensional space is very large. Ruri mutters that is not the problem here. One day when she visited the dimensional space, she was just planning on bringing the Fairy of Time some souvenirs. But once she climbed inside the portal, something amazing had happened to her portal space. There are many new items scattered throughout the space, things Ruri does not remember seeing before. She gestures toward them, and Lydia explains that she thought Ruri might want them, so she brought them over. When Ruri asks where they came from, Lydia answers casually that they are from other people's spaces. Ruri pauses. And then freaks out. She stole them. She forces herself to relax and tells Lydia that, while she appreciates the thought and is happy Lydia wanted to bring her gifts, she cannot accept anything taken from others. Lydia quickly understands the concern and assures her there is no need to worry. She explains that the items come from dimensional spaces that were abandoned long ago. According to Lydia, everyone's dimensional space manifests as a different door lining a long corridor. As the guardian of this dimension, she is able to enter any of those spaces whenever she wishes. While the owner is still alive, the door is lit up and doors to spaces without living owners are dark. All these items come from spaces without living owners. While it is possible to erase the items along with the original space, she would rather see Ruri use them. Ruri questions, so the spaces that are not being used get erased? Lydia says yes, otherwise the doors will just increase indefinitely. In that case, Ruri agrees to take the ones she can use. This makes Lydia happy, who beams and says then she will also move all the items from her previous contractor to her space. Her previous contractor used to tell her to gather all useful items she could find in abandoned spaces and bring it to him. Surprised, Ruri repeats a contract. Lydia explains that she formed one with her after she left the last time. Ruri asks what the contract entails. Lydia keeps the explanation simple. A fairy forms a contract with someone to whom they wish to grant power and support. Ruri considers this, then accepts it for now. She makes only one request. She wants to know Lydia's name. Referring to her solely as the Fairy of Time feels distant and impersonal. Lydia smiles and introduces herself as Lydia. That, apparently, is how Ruri's pocket space became filled with unexpected and rare treasures and how it ended up in such a messy state. After finishing the cookie, Lydia praises it, saying it was delicious. Ruri is genuinely pleased to hear that and promises to bake more for her in the future. While looking around, Ruri finds one of pieces of jewelry. She comments on how beautiful it is, her gaze fixed on it, and asks whether it is also an item left behind by a former contractor. Lydia suddenly calls out, announcing that the cookies are all gone. Ruri reacts with mild shock, remarking that Lydia eats fast. Later, when Ruri returns and tells Granny everything that happened, Granny's expression grows uneasy. By the time Ruri mentions the contract with the Fairy of Time, it looks as though Granny's soul briefly leaves her body. There is still so much Ruri does not understand about this world, about being the cherished one, about the different kingdoms, and about the rules that govern their protection. Granny tells her she will wait until Ruri decides what she wants to do, but even if Ruri were to move to another kingdom, she would not know where to begin. That night, Ruri looks down at the bracelet in her hand. She must have brought it back with her by accident. She goes to sleep shortly afterward and has a strange dream. In this dream, somehow they got back to their old world and somehow Asahi came back with her. Asahi leaps onto Ruri's back, laughing, clinging to her as Ruri runs forward. Asahi asks why Ruri returned at all, when she had looked so happy in the other world. Asahi answers her own question cheerfully, saying she came back simply because she wanted to be with her. Ruri has the strange certainty that she knew this would happen. She thinks that she never should have returned to this world. She had been having so much fun with Chelsea. She should have stayed there with her forever. She remembers Chelsea explaining that a cherished one needs the protection of a kingdom, because such a person is highly desirable. But Ruri had also asked why she could not simply stay there with her instead. She remembers Chelsea telling her that she does not really understand what it means to be a cherished one at all and that she would never have to find out, as long as she stayed. Suddenly, the room floods with light, far too bright, blinding her completely. Ruri tells herself that it must be morning already. But even in the dream, she knows it is still evening. Her dream ended and she jolts upright in shock. A sound escapes her throat, but it is not a scream. It is a soft, unmistakable meow. Confused, she tries to move, only to find herself standing on 4 legs. She starts moving, padding forward with an unfamiliar balance. She needs to cook dinner. Another sound slips out. Meow. Meow. And then it hits her. She is moving on 4 legs. Panic crashes over her all at once. She tries to scream, completely freaking out, but what comes out is wrong. Her voice is wrong. Her body is wrong. What is wrong with her arms? What is wrong with her voice? What the hell is happening? Granny storms into the room, clearly irritated by the noise. It is far too loud, and she demands to know what is going on. The moment their eyes meet, an awkward silence falls, but then Ruri rushes toward her and bursts into tears, leaping at Granny in desperation. To Granny, it looks like nothing more than a troublesome cat throwing a dramatic fit. She grabs the cat by the scruff and lifts it up. For a brief moment, Granny wonders if Ruri picked up a stray without saying anything. She looks more closely at the sobbing creature and considers whether it might be hungry. Is that the problem? Ruri's heart sinks. What if Granny never realizes it is her? What if she stays like this forever? And why did she even turn into a cat in the first place? The fairies rush in at once, speaking over one another. They explain that it is the bracelet is what turned her into a cat. They quickly repeat the explanation to Granny. Granny looks from the fairies to the cat in her hands, then back again. Slowly, she asks if this is really Ruri. One of the fairies confirms it and tells her to remove the bracelet. If she does, Ruri will return to normal. Granny follows the instruction without hesitation. The moment the bracelet is removed, Ruri's form shifts back, and she is herself again. She collapses forward, tears spilling freely as she clings to the fairies, thanking them over and over. She truly thought she might never turn back. Nearby, Granny lets out a long sigh and stares down at the bracelet in her hand. She mutters that Ruri is a crazy child, diving into dimensional spaces, forming contracts with the Fairy of Time, and turning herself into a cat on top of it all. Still, one thing is certain. With Ruri around, there is never a boring day. Ruri apologizes for always messing things up. But the granny shifts the conversation and tells her she was thinking about sending her to the royal capital for an errand. Granny explains that her son has asked her to send him some medical herbs. Instead of sending them alone, she would like Ruri to deliver them personally. That way, Ruri can see more of the kingdom and experience other parts of the world. After she has seen more, she can make a properly informed decision about what to do next. Ruri thinks it over. In the end, it is just an errand. She will travel to the royal capital, look around, and get a sense of the kingdom. She then asks shyly if she still wants to live in the forest afterward, then could she come back here? Granny ruffles her hair and tells her that she is more than welcome back anytime. And so, it is decided. Ruri will travel to the capital. Granny adds that when Ruri reaches the capital, she can stay at her son's house. He works for the Dragon King, which is why he lives there. Ruri pauses, realizing that this must mean he holds an incredibly high position. Granny casually mentions that she has already sent him a letter. When Ruri arrives, she can go straight to his place. With that settled, Granny tells her to go to bed. She is leaving tomorrow. Ruri doesn't sleep. She is far too excited, her thoughts racing as she wonders what the Dragon King might be like. Elsewhere, deep within the royal capital, one of His Majesty's attendants presents him a stack of portraits of eligible young women carefully selected for consideration. For a brief moment, the portraits exist. In the next, they are reduced to ash by His Majesty. One of the officials stares in horror and demands to know what His Majesty is doing. He stayed up all night selecting those candidates. His Majesty replies flatly that the man should have spent that time doing his actual job instead. He orders Klaus to bring him his work documents. As the official retreats, His Majesty mutters that they still refuse to give up. The reply comes immediately. Never. It is the duty of the king's aides to find him a suitable bride. Another aide lets out a tired sigh and remarks that, at this point, it might be faster to simply wait until His Majesty finds a woman he likes and brings her back himself. The unlucky girl, Ruri, was summoned to another world against her will. Stuff happened. She got exiled and left in the forest to die. She was saved by a witch called Chelsea, who lives in the forest, and Ruri swore revenge on those who wronged her. However, she has yet to take her revenge and instead she's living a happy and peaceful life in the forest. But she cannot live that way forever, and so she decided to go to the capital of the Dragon Kingdom. And at this moment in the royal capital, Ruri is currently being chased by ruffians. How did she end up like this? This is bad. They're chasing her to an area with fewer people, but that's not her biggest problem here. The fairies, they seem like they are about to do something terrible to those men. A few hours earlier, upon arriving at the royal capital, Ruri looks around in open awe. As expected of the capital, everything feels overwhelming. The streets are wide and people move everywhere in dense, lively streams. The fairies hover excitedly around her, drawing far too much attention. Ruri quickly scolds them, reminding them that they are supposed to stay hidden. She cannot very well walk through the capital with fairies floating openly around her. To solve the problem, she comes up with a simple plan. She has them play rock, paper, scissors. Only the winners are allowed to stay with her for now, the rest are told to follow later, quietly and out of sight. With that settled, Ruri heads toward the weapons shop Chelsea had recommended. Even though Chelsea has been taking care of her until now, Ruri knows she needs to earn her own money. She considers selling the spear Lydia gave her. Lydia had even encouraged her to take more items, but Ruri had insisted that this was enough for now. At the shop, she presents the spear. As the shopkeeper examines it, his expression slowly turns grave. After a long moment, he tells her that he cannot sell something like this in his shop. Ruri is visibly surprised and asks why. The man says that he truly wants to help her. After all, she is a friend of Chelsea. The shopkeeper explains that the item is simply too valuable. He does not have enough money to buy it from her. Ruri blinks in surprise. Really? The man nods and adds that it is an exceptionally fine spear. He asks where she managed to get her hands on something like this. Ruri is left dumbfounded, not knowing what to say. The shopkeeper watches her expression and says that he understands. Perhaps this is the work of fairies. When items that do not belong to someone suddenly appear in their dimensional space, it can be anything, from worthless junk to priceless national treasures. Such things often come from people who died long ago. It is rumored that fairies move those abandoned belongings, causing them to surface in other people's spaces. The explanation makes something click in Ruri's mind. Lydia had once told her to place unwanted items into a portal she created. When Ruri had asked where that portal led, Lydia had only laughed and said, "Who knows?" So that was what it meant. The man then asks if they should get going. Ruri asks where he means. He replies that they are going to a shop that can actually buy the spear. She reminds him that he just said it was impossible to sell something like this. The shopkeeper corrects her. It is impossible for him to buy it. In other words, they should go sell it to a place with lots of money to spare. Because Chelsea asked this of him, the shopkeeper refuses to give up until the spear is sold. Together, he and Ruri head for the largest shopping district in the capital. What follows is a fierce negotiation. Offers are made and rejected. When the buyer insists that his last offer is final, the shopkeeper coolly threatens to take the spear to another store instead. After a long, bitter pause, the man relents and mutters that he will take it. He tosses the heavy coin pouches toward Ruri. Ruri hesitates and asks whether the shopkeeper should not receive a share for his trouble. He only laughs and tells her not to worry about it. He says he is satisfied enough with the feeling of victory. And just like that, Ruri suddenly finds herself in possession of a small fortune. Unfortunately, word travels fast. Not long after leaving the district, a group of rough-looking men corners her path. They grin and suggest that she be a good girl and hand over her money. That is why she is now running. This is bad. Very bad. As she runs, one of the fairies murmurs that they should simply exterminate them. Ruri snaps back under her breath, telling them not to say such disturbing things in such cute voices. The fairy offers alternatives: destroy them, make them regret ever being born, burn them where they stand. Ruri immediately shuts that down as well. Absolutely not. But when she glances back over her shoulder, her expression tightens. This situation is far worse than she imagined. She has to stop this, otherwise the fairies will kill them. She has to do something quick, think of something. Ruri suddenly remembers that Lydia had given her something earlier, warning that it could be dangerous. Lydia had explained that it was not lethal. If thrown at an enemy, all she needed to do was hold her breath. Despite a bad feeling, Ruri tosses it into the air. For a moment, nothing happens. Then it explodes in a thick fog, releasing a revolting smell that makes her gag. She can't help feeling a little bad for the men and pokes one. They are not dead, right? A deep laugh echoes from nearby. Ruri freezes and looks up. A man leans casually against the wall, his face partially hidden. He says that he saw a girl being chased by thugs, got worried, and followed her. Ruri murmurs so he was thinking of coming to her aid. He replies that it was probably unnecessary, she did a splendid job all by herself. Ruri glances at the thugs, wondering if she overdid it, but her thoughts vanish the moment the man casually lifts a lock of her hair between his fingers. Ruri jerks away in surprise. Even though he said he wanted to help her, she was carefree and accidentally showed her hair, and looking closely, isn't this person super suspicious? He has got a sword, is dressed all in black, and she cannot see anything but his eyes. He asks for her name, but Ruri dashes off before answering, claiming she is very busy. Soon, she reaches a crowded street and breathes a sigh of relief. This time, she is safe. Yet with so many people around earlier, it is possible more thugs saw her. She decides to head toward Chelsea's son's house, planning to blend in as best as possible along the way. An idea flickers in her mind. Meanwhile, back at the palace, Klaus asks His Majesty where he went. The king replies casually that he just stepped out. One aide wonders if he wandered downtown. If so, surely he could have found a girl or two to bring back. His blush startles the courtiers. Did he actually meet someone? The king insists they are wrong. He does not seek a companion, he merely wanted to speak with her. The court erupts in celebration at the suggestion. Questions barrage him. Who is she? Where did he find her? How strong are her magic powers? What is she like? Pressed, he admits quietly that he does not know. She had been chased by thugs, and he tried to help, but she ran when he asked her name. The only detail he knows is her platinum blonde hair. Murmuring almost to himself, he says that it was beautiful. When he quickly insists that it is unnecessary, the courtiers refuse to relent. They demand action. Soon, they order the Dragon Knights to mobilize, searching for a potential future bride, focusing on girls with platinum blonde hair. Meanwhile, Ruri sneezes. One of the fairies asks if she has caught a cold. She shakes her head. Perhaps someone is gossiping about her. She has become a cat again and thinks from now on the future will surely be filled with very difficulties. The other day, Klaus received a letter from his mother, who lives far away in the forest. She told him she sent over a girl named Ruri with his magical herbs and requested him to look after her for a while. It is very rare for his mother to ask him a favor, and she has never asked for something like this. A couple of days later, a white cat and a fairy were standing in front of his house. The fairy and the cat were a very peculiar combination. He asked them if he could help with something. The cat replied that Chelsea had sent her and her name is Ruri. He was shocked to find out that Ruri was a cat. Ruri yawns, lounging on the sofa. Klaus sure is taking his time. The fairy asks her if she will keep being a cat. She replies yeah. Since she's not sure when Klaus will return, since he only saw her in his cat form earlier, she will stay this way for now. Wouldn't he be surprised if he came home and an unknown person was sitting in his living room? She was summoned to another world, exiled and taken care of by a lady named Chelsea. Klaus is Chelsea's son. Apparently he has quite a high position in the court of the Dragon King. Ruri wonders why he looks so angry as he reads the letter again and again. He then sighs and says he is grateful to her for bringing the letter that his mother had her delivered. The letter states that the recipient is a cherished one, loved by the fairies. He asks if this is the only fairy who accompanies her. Ruri says no, it seemed best not to make a scene in the middle of the city, so she kept the others hidden for the day. He murmurs, is that so? Ruri asks if she should summon the rest. He replies please do. At her call, dozens of fairies stream into the room, hovering everywhere at different heights. The sheer number makes him step back, eyes wide in surprise. The fairies make so much noise that she finally snaps at them to stop. She mutters to herself that this is how it is. Seeing how many there are, she asks if it would be alright to send some of them away. He desperately says please do. He now understands what his mother meant, she is extraordinarily loved by the fairies. Still, there is no way he can keep her safe in his own house. Curious, she asks why, and he explains that people like her are extremely rare, highly valuable, and sought after by many kingdoms. His home's security is simply not enough to protect someone of her importance. He insists that the safest place for her would be the castle. She quickly assures him that there is no need and that she can manage without going so far, but he insists it is the least he can do. They simply need permission from His Majesty. Despite her hesitation, he tells her he will go at once and asks her to stay in the room until he returns. Before she can argue further, he slams the door and rushes out. And so, she waits for Klaus to return. As she waits, her mind wanders to the castle and its security. His home already seems safe enough, making her wonder what the castle is like. The door slams open, and Klaus enters. His Majesty looks up from his desk, muttering what is going on. He is being so noisy. Kaluz urgently says he would like to request a private audience, his face tense. His Majesty asks what is the matter. This is not like him. Even his aide is shocked and asks what is going on. He mumbles a cherished one and they remain confused, their expressions blank. Then he blurts out that the cherished one has appeared. His Majesty freezes in his seat, eyes wide, demanding to know what he just said and whether he is sure. Klaus meets his gaze steadily and confirms that there is no mistake. His Majesty asks from what place the cherished one comes. Klaus replies calmly that it is a cat. The men around the room freeze in shock, some trying to hide their disappointment. A cat? Surely it cannot be a very powerful cherished one. Yet Klaus shakes his head, clarifying that he does not mean a demi-human, that it is just a normal cat. Frankly, Klaus had thought Rory would be a human. He tells them about the letter of Chelsea. His Majesty falls deep in thought and asks how did she manage to run into a cherished one. He replies she did not say. However, she did write that the cherished one doesn't know much about how this world works. His Majesty says they should meet her first and then think of what to do next. One of his aides suggests isn't it a good thing that she doesn't know how this world works? This way they can control her very easily. A sudden rumble shakes the room, and everyone jerks upright, startled. Goosebumps crawl up their arms. Klaus freezes mid-step, then points toward the window. Outside, the fairies hover, their tiny faces fixed on the group in a way that's almost unsettling. A soft, eerie voice carries through the glass, delivering a single, clear message. Another deep rumble follows, pulsing through the walls, repeating insistently like a drumbeat, warning, warning, warning. The fairies' words echo in the room, warning number 1, they must not harm Rory. The men blanch, His Majesty tries to focus. Their cute voices are super distracting. They let them know they will kill them very slowly and painfully if they hurt Rory. He cannot help but think they're saying really scary stuff, but they look super adorable. His Majesty's aide says he has never heard of fairies behaving like this before. They then express warning number 2. They must not ignore Rory's wishes. If they do that, they will be punished. Klaus raises his trembling hand and says he has a question. That means it is fine if they argue their case and persuade her to come to an agreement. Is that correct? They form a circle and start muttering to each other. After they come to a conclusion, they announce if Rory allows it, it is fine. But forcing her is not allowed, she must consent by her own free will. He blurts thank you for their reply. They then tell them the third warning, if they make her sad they will destroy them using fire. One blurts, the other says water, no magic. They all argue to each other while one says basically that is it. Now they have been warned they won't forgive them if they do not stick to the rules. His Majesty calls out to Klaus and asks if the cherished one can control her emotions well. If she is unpredictable or childish and throws tantrums, the future doesn't look too good. Klaus' reply is well, when he spoke to her, she was very calm and polite. She even scolded the fairies at one point and they seemed to listen to her. Agitated, His Majesty's aide remarks but never before has he heard of fairies flying around threatening people. The cherished one must have extraordinary magic powers. This meets the benefits of housing. The cherished one here will probably be great, but it is also risky. Well, at least they were lucky that the cherished one did not appear in Nadasha. And so Klaus went back to his house, and he told Rory that the Dragon King really wanted to meet her. Rory wonders if it's just her, or has Klaus' speech become much more polite. She asks if she goes to the castle, what should she do once she is there? Will she be asked to perform certain tasks or something? He replies oh no, she will be free to do whatever she pleases. The only thing that will change is where she lives. Her movement will not be restricted in any capacity. Once again she notices his politeness, although she dislikes the stiffness and formality of it all. It seems her freedom will not be limited and she cannot be too selfish in these matters. She decided to move into the castle. She lifts her head when the fairies suddenly pop back into view, happily announcing their return. She hadn't even realized they were gone and asks if they had gone somewhere important. They explain that Lydia sent them on an errand and asked them to give them hell. She pauses, puzzled. When did Lydia learn that language, and more importantly, give hell to whom exactly? Before she can think too deeply about it, Klaus calls out to her, informing her that the carriage has arrived to take her away. During the ride to the castle, she chats lightly with Klaus, filling the space with small talk. By the time the carriage rolls on, she decides that he really is a kind person, even if he looks noticeably worn out. She remembers that she still needs to explain the whole cat situation to him. She tells him she has something she wants to say, but he interrupts gently, telling her that he already knows. Then he adds, almost casually, that he is relieved she is not human. She freezes. Slowly, she asks if it would really be that bad if she were. Klaus answers that humans are dangerously greedy, far too quick to give in to the lure of power. The idea of a human wielding magic at her level is terrifying. She sits quietly after that, grateful she is still in her cat form. If she were in her true form, she knows her face would be stiff. She decides it is best if she stays a cat for a little longer. And like that, with mixed feelings and in cat form, she went to meet the Dragon King. By the time they reach His Majesty's room, she's feeling nervous. His Majesty is still at his desk, caught up in his work. When she sees him, the first thought that hits her: he is super handsome. Since her mom was a model, she's pretty used to seeing really beautiful men and women. But even so, this guy is something else. His hair is black like a raven's feathers. His eyes are a stunning shade of green. They look so deep, like she could drown in them. She feels like she has seen those eyes before. Cherished ones, they sometimes appear in this world, bringing prosperity but also confusion and destruction. Historically, countries usually went to war to possess cherished ones for themselves. But if the cherished ones accidentally got injured as a result of the conflicts, the fairies retaliated in anger, sometimes destroying entire nations. This pattern was repeated many, many times. Eventually, the four largest nations in the region came to an agreement. They decided the cherished ones should be free to live their life however they like. They must stop forcing them to do their bidding and respect their decisions. Eventually, all countries in the region started following the same rule. In order to protect the cherished ones from those who wish to harm them or use them for their own purposes. In the event a cherished one should appear, the kingdom in which the cherished one lives shall immediately provide adequate protection. So basically nowadays all countries are wishing for a cherished one to show up in their territory, since that is the only way to claim them. Since word came out that a cherished one had finally appeared here in the Dragon Kingdom, everyone has been very anxious. His Majesty apologizes for the tense atmosphere. She tells him not to worry about it, thinking that it can't really be helped. She knows she would be just as shocked if someone like her suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The fairies begin to murmur among themselves if she is being bullied. They are quickly reassured that no one is mistreating her. After that, the Dragon King orders everyone else to wait outside, leaving the room quiet once more. Turning his attention back to her, he says that regarding her sudden appearance, he would like to ask why she came to the capital. He mentions that he heard she had been under Chelsea's care for some time before being sent here, and asks if there is any particular reason she chose to come now. She states there is no special reason. She simply does not know much about this world yet. Together, they thought that coming to the royal capital would allow her to observe the kingdom, meet its people, and slowly learn how things work. On top of that, she needs to decide how she plans to live in this world from now on, and Chelsea told her she should start thinking seriously about it. As she finishes, His Majesty says she doesn't sound especially thrilled about the whole idea. At her silence, he says no matter what, they will provide her with a room, food, clothing and whatever else she may need. If she wishes to know more about this country, they will prepare a teacher for her. If there is anything else she wants or needs, she can just tell him. She is also free to go wherever she wishes without restriction. However, he would greatly appreciate it if she informs them when she leaves the castle. She softly says thank you, but they do not have to do all that just for her. But then he says in return he has a favor to ask. Should she ever be harmed or treated unfairly here, she should just tell him about it immediately. She says he means she should report it directly to him. He replies yes, she will handle those matters himself. Also, if the fairies ever start rampaging, he would like her to stop them. He wonders if something happened and says she understands she would talk to the fairies for him. She quickly tells the fairies not to attack anyone on her behalf, even if she ends up getting hurt. He watches as she starts arguing with them, back and forth, and without realizing it, a small smile appears on his face as he murmurs that she is cute. She turns toward him and asks if he just said something. He immediately plays dumb and replies that he did not. Basically, in the end she did not tell the Dragon King about her being a human, and so she ended up living a luxurious life in the castle. When she is led to her room, she stops short, jumping in surprise. She slowly turns to the man guiding her and asks if he is really sure this is the right room, because just for one cat. He answers like it's the most obvious thing in the world, saying that of course it is. They prepared a room on the same level as the king's. He then asks her what she would like to have for dinner. He guesses maybe fish. She doesn't eat vegetables, does she? She quickly tells him that she is fine with a normal meal. If possible, she adds, could it be served on a regular plate too? He looks doubtful and asks if her stomach will really be alright. She tells him not to worry and, to make it sound more convincing, reminds him that she is not a normal cat, after all. His eyes light up at that. He agrees, saying that in that case, he will have the staff prepare a proper meal for her. Watching his reaction, she thinks that line worked better than expected. After he leaves and her dinner is brought in, she waits a moment, then asks the fairies if he is really gone. They confirm that he has left, and she tells them to warn her if he comes anywhere near the room again. She is back in her human form. Even now, the room feels way too big for just her. She decides she might go for a walk later. For now, she focuses on her food, and as she bites into the sandwiches, she realizes they are surprisingly delicious. She was nervous, but the Dragon King was really nice. However, there's still many things to worry about. She decides to turn in early, telling herself that she will think about what to do with her life tomorrow. At least, that is the plan. Midnight comes, and she still hasn't slept a wink. She lies there staring at the ceiling, eyes wide, looking almost possessed. Maybe it's because this is her first time sleeping in a place this luxurious. Eventually, she gives up and climbs out of bed. One of the fairies asks where she is going. She replies that since sleep clearly isn't happening, she might as well go out for a walk. The fairies offer to come along with her, but Rory insists on going alone. She tells them they can wait for her. Shifting back into her cat form, she quietly moves, glancing up at the sky as she walks, bright and wide and surprisingly beautiful, and almost relaxing until the sound of approaching footsteps makes her pause. It turns out to be the king himself. He remarks that she is still awake and asks if something is wrong. She says no. He says she couldn't sleep, but catches himself since she is a cat, being awake at night should be normal. She thinks that is not it and says she did try to sleep, but it just didn't work, so she decided to take a walk instead. He points out that she is alone and asks about the fairies. She tells him she had them stay behind in her room. After a moment, he asks if she would like to talk for a bit. He then asks how her room is and whether she likes it. She answers that she does, though she feels the room's splendor is somewhat wasted on her. He explains that her room is next to his, which makes it practical from a security standpoint. She simply accepts that. The king then adds that if she ever wishes to return to Chelsea's place, that would be fine as well. It isn't as though anyone could truly stop her from leaving. Still, as king, he admits he would prefer it if she stayed in the castle, and he would be happy if she took her time before deciding where she wants to be. Both Klaus and the Dragon King are really nice people. Earlier she was super worried about coming here, but maybe living here won't be so bad after all. He hesitates for a moment before calling her name, then adds that, in addition to what he asked earlier, he has one more request. She tenses, instantly on guard, so there really is a special mission for the cherished one? When he doesn't answer right away, she presses, asking what it is, but he takes too long, and a heavy silence falls over them. After a while, he finally says, avoiding her gaze, that he has never touched a small animal before. She stares at him deadpan. By small animal, he means like a cat or a dog. She asks, then follows up, does he like small animals? He simply nods. He admits that when he was younger, he tried to pet animals several times, but dragon people are naturally very strong, and small animals instinctively fear him, always running away. He quickly adds, of course he won't force her or anything if it is fine with her. She tells him it is fine, he's providing her with food and shelter after all. And she would like to repay him somehow so he can pet her as much as he likes. He looks stunned and asks again if it is really okay. She tells him to go ahead. He slowly reaches out and touches her fluffy head. She thinks he is being impossibly gentle, as if she were a fragile object. She closes her eyes, letting her body relax. This actually feels really nice. From that day on, the Demon King starts visiting her several times a day. One time, he brings a cat toy, but she glares at it with a deadpan expression and refuses to play with it. He asks why, pointing out that cats are supposed to love playing with these things. She tells him that she isn't a normal cat, after all, and won't play with the toy, but she will let him touch her paw pads. He admits that he made the toy especially for her, but he settles for patting her paw instead. Later, he asks if there is anything else she wants, since she didn't like the cat toy. She shakes her head and says that he has already given her everything she needs. He murmurs that she really isn't a greedy person and adds that she could ask him for anything if she wanted. She replies that he sounds like a grandpa spoiling his first grandchild. While Ruri quietly processes the Dragon King's affections, someone in Natasha discovers the prophecy and plans to report it to Grandma. The fairies notice Ruri's tense expression and ask what's wrong. She admits that something doesn't feel right. Then it hits her, has she been getting way too comfortable here? Since she started living in the castle, her lifestyle has seen a serious change. She used to be self-sufficient, but now she has got people doing everything for her. She was taught how to write and read, as well as the customs and some general knowledge about the Dragon Kingdom. And as for the Dragon King, whenever he had some time over in his busy schedule, he would come over to see her. Seems like the king wants her by his side, not because she is a cherished one, but simply because he likes cats. Then again, probably not. She is a cherished one after all. Lately, there's something she keeps thinking about. She cannot really put her finger on it, but somehow being by the Dragon King's side feels comfortable, and when they are separated, she feels really sad and anxious. It is very strange. It is as if a hole in her heart opens every time he leaves. It makes her want to meet him again just so she can finish that hole. And every time they meet, those feelings just grow stronger. But it is not like she has a crush on him or anything. Yeah, it feels more like living under a kotatsu under winter. The fairies ask her if she's okay. Does she feel lonely? She thinks about it. She's not sure that she would classify what she's feeling as lonely. One of the fairies says it cannot be helped since the Dragon King and she has compatible wavelengths. She looks confused. The fairy says they both have magic powers, have matching wavelengths, a perfect fit. If her wavelengths are compatible, being close feels pleasant, and when they separate they will feel lonely. She remembers hearing something about that before. Chelsea told her about wavelength compatibility. But she did not really understand what she meant back then. The feeling must be what she was talking about. South. What she is feeling now must be the same as what the fairies are feeling when they are by her side. So when their wavelengths are compatible, they do not want to be apart. So what will happen to her from now on? As His Majesty searches under the table, Klaus sighs and remarks that if he is looking for Ruri, she isn't there, she went for a walk earlier. His Majesty stiffens, thinking that again. Today, he hasn't even touched the fluff once. Klaus reassures him that she will likely be back in time for his next break. His Majesty decides to wait right there, but Klaus pushes him to return to his work. The king wonders if perhaps she is avoiding him, but Klaus dismisses the idea as overreacting. Back at his desk, the air around His Majesty feels heavy and depressed. His aide notices, and comments that lately His Majesty has been obsessed with the cherished one. They had thought he was finally interested in the opposite gender, but it seems they were premature in celebrating. They are still searching for the girl, but so far, it has been fruitless. The reason His Majesty is so attentive to the cherished one is surely that their wavelengths are compatible. That the king and the cherished one share such a connection is a joyous thing, but it also seems that, as a result, the king's interest in marriage has completely vanished. Klaus suddenly notes that, now that he thinks about it, Ruri left for her walk quite a while ago. And the same pattern keeps repeating. Eventually, Klaus finds Ruri, who says she was just taking a walk. Without hesitation, Klaus scoops her up and brings her to His Majesty. He places her on the table and asks if she can explain what is going on. Ruri tilts her head, pretending to be clueless, and asks what on earth he means. She doesn't know what he is talking about. Klaus looks to His Majesty and asks if he is all right. The king snaps, exasperated. Of course he isn't alright, he can't relax at all now that she is avoiding him. He can't get any work done because his mind keeps drifting to her. He wonders aloud if he did something to make her hate him. Was it the cat toys? Did he touch her paws too much? He promises that if she truly hates it, he will control himself and not touch the fluff again, but even as he says it, it clearly pains him. Rory says he is being overly dramatic. Klaus sighs and points out that if there's a reason she is avoiding His Majesty, she should just tell them. Suddenly, being avoided without knowing why has made His Majesty deeply sad. Rory realizes Klaus is right, she would feel the same way if someone suddenly avoided her without explanation. She murmurs she got too comfortable spending time together with him. So she thought a break would be for the best. He asks her with a question in his eyes that if she felt comfortable, then why did she avoid him? She replies, well, she has a childhood friend who used to follow her around and wanted to be together all the time. Chelsea told her that the reason this girl kept following her could be because their wavelengths were compatible. But she did not feel anything towards her, so it was all very uncomfortable for her. Like she would follow her everywhere, and when she told her not to do, she didn't listen to her at all. She tried to run away and move without telling her, but somehow she found out where she lived. His Majesty puts an end to her rant saying okay, he gets it. He realizes. So basically she believed that just like her childhood friend, she got attached to him and she thought that he might be bothered by it, so she ran away. She murmurs yes. He says he can understand where she's coming from. After all, there are some people who will just assume that others feel the same way they do. And some people won't care and attach themselves regardless of the other's feelings. She asks, isn't there a way to prevent it? He states it is hard to prevent since it all comes down to manners. Normally people withdraw if they feel like they are being a nuisance to others. But if they keep sticking to them despite being told no, that means the core problem is with their personality, not with wavelength. She thinks so. In other words, the way Asahi is acting is not just because of her magic. It is simply because she is an airhead and completely oblivious to other feelings. She feels a small wave of relief that it isn't her fault. His Majesty remarks that she was worried because she wants to keep spending time with him, right? She murmurs a quiet yes. He smiles and tells her that in that case, there's no need to worry. He feels the same way, being by her side is comfortable. He explains that he held himself back before, afraid that if he came on too strong, she might grow to hate him, so he did his best to not be overbearing. Then, gently picking her up, he says that if she feels the same way he does, there's no reason to hold back anymore. From now on, she shouldn't worry about being a nuisance, she can come to see him as often as she likes. Somehow, after all the worry, it wasn't a big deal at all. He then admits there is something he wanted to ask of her. He has thought about this for a while, but she shouldn't call him His Majesty. It sounds like they're strangers. From now on, she can just call him Jade. She repeats it softly, Jade. Exactly, he replies, warm and steady. She nearly melts. This is the best. Ever since they made up, she has been devoting a lot of her time to lounging on the Dragon King's lap. And a rumor has been spreading that the Dragon King has postponed his plans of marriage. Also, she still has not told anyone that she's actually a human. During her usual walk, she leaps onto a tree branch and from there takes in the view of the entire city. She's left speechless. What a gorgeous sight. Now that she thinks about it, it has been quite a while since she arrived in the Dragon Kingdom, yet she has basically done nothing but eat, sleep, and take walks. If Chelsea found out, she would definitely be angry. But then she convinces herself that walking counts as exploring, she's gathering knowledge of the Dragon Kingdom, after all. Nearby, two people discuss the recent rumors. The castle has sent several search parties into town. Something about His Majesty looking for his bride? One asks. Yeah, he thinks so, the other replies. His Majesty has finally found a girl he likes, but it's not certain yet. She's only caught his interest, nothing more. Rory ponders quietly. A girl that Jade is interested in. If she adds it up with the fact that she can't return to her own world and has to stay here forever, she would probably want to find someone to love, eventually marry, and have children. But if she stays in cat form it will be impossible. She knows she could easily solve this issue by just telling everyone that she is actually a human. But she's still too scared. She really wishes she had someone she could ask for advice about this, but Chelsea is so far away. She would like to ask the fairies about it, but she's worried they would misinterpret what she means. She thought of writing a letter, but she's not good enough to write in this language yet. If only there was someone. Someone who knew of her situation, someone she could trust. Someone who knows how this world works. But she guesses that is too much to ask. A man calls her name, snapping her out of her thoughts. He crouches down and says she is a cherished one, right? She replies yes, that is her. He says she's really the Ruri. The one who was summoned to Nadasha. She's actually a human, right? So how come she's in cat form? How come this person knows her secret? Who is he? She cannot remember seeing him before. But no one is supposed to know that she is living disguised as a cat. She hasn't even told Chelsea. She has to think fast. She needs to say something right now. She starts to back away, and the fairies instantly become alert, declaring that he's bullying her. They grow angry, reminding him that they were told no dragons would ever hurt her, and begin circling him warily. He quickly raises his hands, swearing that he isn't lying, he just wanted to ask her something. She apologizes for startling him, but thinks it's natural to be cautious when someone they know to be human suddenly turns into a cat. She mentions that he seems to know about her. He confirms that he does. He was there when she was banished. He explains that he is a field agent for the Dragon Kingdom, specialized in gathering intelligence, until he was sent on a mission to Nadasha. He has been aware of her ever since she was first summoned there by the priests. When she was summoned, his mission wasn't yet complete, so he still had work to do. That's why, unfortunately, he couldn't save her at the time of her exile. Instead, he asked the fairies to guide her to her grandmother's house, where he knew she would be safe. She repeats his grandma's house. He replies yes. Didn't she tell her about him? Her eyes widen. Could Chelsea be his grandmother? She asks if he is perhaps Chelsea's grandson. He confirms, introducing himself as Joshua, and adds that he believes she has been in the care of his old man, Klaus. He smiles warmly and tells her that she knows his grandmother. He says his grandma looks kind of scary but is actually really nice. He smiles at her, and she admits, yeah. She's scary, but nice. Apparently, when she was exiled and taken to the forest, Joshua saw the fairies following him and instructed them to lead her to Chelsea's house. After being brought to this world, she has kept thinking that she must be really unlucky. But she just did not realize that the kindness of so many different people have truly saved her. She was wrong. She's actually really, really lucky. He then asks her how come she is currently a cat. She explains everything to him. He realizes so the reason she is still in cat form is because of something his father said. It's not really like him to say those kind of things though. But then he says, a cat might actually be less likely to be attacked or kidnapped. And because she was attacked by two ruffians, the fairies almost destroyed the entire kingdom. But wouldn't it be easier for her if she just tells everyone about her? He's not going to force her though. She asks him so is he saying he will keep her secret for her? He exclaims, of course, and there's no need to be so formal with him. He won't tell since his father's words were what started this to begin with. But even if she does tell them that she lied, he doesn't really think anyone will be angry with her. It's up to her to do as she sees fit. She thanks Joshua sincerely. He pats her on the head and tells her not to worry about it. He then says he was on his way to go see His Majesty and offers her to join. After that she kept lounging around on the Dragon King's lap. Klaus asks Joshua if he has finished his mission. He replies that he has, at least for now. Then Klaus asks about the missing persons case. Has he still not found her? Joshua shakes his head. There isn't even a trace, she's probably no longer in the capital. Klaus remarks well, if he couldn't find her, this is quite something. Ruri notices his tense expression and asks what the matter is. Klaus explains that there was a woman in town whom His Majesty supposedly fell in love with at first sight, and everyone is currently looking for her. His Majesty suddenly blurts out that this isn't true. There was no love at first sight, though he won't deny that he was intrigued. Klaus ignores him and continues, telling her that since they haven't been able to find the woman, they suspect she might have been kidnapped by merchants. A woman matching her description was recently spotted, and it was reported that she was sold as a servant. He adds grimly that if a person is kidnapped from the Dragon Kingdom and sold as a servant in another nation, there's unfortunately very little they can do. His Majesty suddenly gets up and scoops her into his arms as well. Klaus blinks and asks where he's going, but His Majesty simply replies, nap. Joshua freezes. Did he just say they're going for a nap? Jade carries her to his room and, without a word, begins removing his outer layers of clothing. Internally, she jumps in fright, silently screaming, what is he doing? Undressing in front of a girl he's not even dating? Then she remembers, oh, right, she's a cat. He lays down on the bed, holding her gently in his arms. He mutters that work has been piling up lately, he's exhausted, and she's so soft, touching her makes him feel much better. She raises a point, reminding him that she's still a young woman, just for his information. He glances counters since she's a cat, it's perfectly fine. And just like that, he drifts off to sleep with her in his arms. She, of course, cannot sleep. Somehow, it feels harder and harder to confess that she's actually human. She glances at him and thinks that he already has someone he loves. She should have known he had a girl in his life, he's such a beautiful person, after all. But since he visits her so often, she had let herself assume that he must not have a woman in his life. He is probably very popular with women. His reputation is really good after all, she is sure she gets a lot of requests for marriage. She tells herself to just go to sleep, but then finds herself wondering about the woman he fell in love with, what she's like. From then on, in addition to just lounging around the king's lap, she started sleeping in the king's bed at night. Joshua looks at her with a frown. She murmurs she would like to get a job, please. He retorts no. She protests that she cannot live like this, doing nothing all day. He reminds her she is a cherished one. What would she do if something happened? It is fine if she just spends her days relaxing, they will provide anything she needs. But she insists she wants to work and be able to live an independent life. He asks her why. She replies well, she came to the capital of the Dragon Kingdom in order to learn about this world and figure out how she wants to spend the rest of her life. If Chelsea found out that she is doing nothing all day and living this lazy lifestyle, she would be really mad. He lets out an exhausted sigh. His grandma is really scary when she's angry after all. She somehow managed to convince the reluctant Joshua, and so she got a job. She started working as a waitress at a restaurant in the city. Joshua walks in and says she really looks lively. She replies she always wanted to try being a waitress. In the other world, Asahi would always interfere. Wherever she went to her interview she would always show up telling her she would worry if she went alone and then she would end up being hired instead of her every single time. Joshua scratches his head and mutters, for him he would personally rather see her living quietly in the palace. But as much as it pains him to say it, it looks like she's having fun here. She beams and thanks him. He then says he is going to have to leave for the time being and tells her to act like a proper adult while he is gone. She asks if he is traveling somewhere. He replies yeah, he has got a mission looking for the missing girl. He adds he is traveling abroad so he won't be back for several days, so if something were to happen she needs to contact grandma. And so she kept sneaking out of the castle while all spending time with Jade so as not to make him suspicious. And every day she makes her way to the next town in order to work. Life without Asahi is amazing. In her previous world, Asahi would always show up and interfere no matter what and so she could never do the part-time job she wanted. Although she did some part-time modeling work that her mom arranged. Now that she thinks about it, although everyone else was charmed by Asahi mom and the people around her actually prioritized her even when Asahi was also present. But Asahi's charm magic should have worked on them as well. But she remembers Chelsea's words that she wouldn't have any effect on those with stronger magic abilities. A customer calls out to her, asking if he can place an order. She walks over and asks what he would like. He requests the new item on the menu. She made the hamburger and fries on a whim, which the manager decided to sell. It immediately became super popular, and since it's so easy to make, it's likely to spread everywhere soon. He comments that it's unlike any food he's ever seen and wonders if she might be a foreigner. Another customer chimes in, asking if she came from a country far away. She replies that, yes, she comes from a place very far from here, not even just a different country, but a completely different world, she thinks silently to herself. He then mentions that the merchants in town told him something quite disturbing. The other customer immediately asks if he means the situation with Nadasha. She inquires if something happened there. Hidden explains that the country has been buying a lot of weapons lately, and the merchants can't stop talking about it. There's no doubt that Nadasha is preparing for war. The words make her freeze. Nadasha is preparing for war. What does that even mean? The man continues, explaining that apparently they are planning to declare war on the Dragon Kingdom. But they seem completely unbothered. One even mutters that they never learn, do they? How many times have they tried already? Isn't this the third time? Just 3. He mocks, it feels like 100. She stands frozen, utterly bewildered. This is not the reaction she expected. What is going on here? Their calmness is so strange that she can't help asking about it. He tells her that he thinks this reaction is natural. By now, the gap in power between dragons and humans is enormous. Humans simply don't stand a chance. Everyone already knows the outcome before the war even begins. She ended up hearing a very interesting story. Apparently, Nada Shah has waged war against the kingdom countless times during the last centuries. However, dragons are creatures with not only powerful magic, but strong bodies that can recover from injuries very quickly. So to dragonkind human weapons are not very effective. However, that hasn't stopped Nada Shah. Nada Shah has kept trying to produce stronger weapons, and apparently every time Nada Shah gets their hands on better weapons, they wage war against the Dragon Kingdom. In that case, she's very thankful that the Dragon Kingdom is strong enough to defend itself, but doesn't that mean that Nada Shah must have suffered lots of damage and losses? The customer replies, well yeah, basically, but it is their own fault since they are always the instigators. She freezes when they ask could it be that she is actually a Nada Shah. She replies no, but she has some acquaintances there. He says that must be tough and apologizes for laughing about it earlier. That was in bad taste. She realizes she is feeling worry for Asahi and the others. She thought she wanted revenge, but it is not like she wants them to die or anything. But they might just perish in the war. It's actually a possibility. No matter how much she dislikes them, she cannot help but think that's wrong. According to the rumors she has heard, Nadasha's Shine Maiden will be a large part of the war at the front lines. That Asahi would volunteer for such a thing is definitely strange. She doesn't have the smarts to be an asset in war. But then she imagines a scenario where they might have told Asahi a lie, that Ruri was kidnapped by the Dragon Kingdom, and so Asahi decided they have to get them back. And now she can totally see it. Actually, this is most definitely what has happened. So does that mean the war is all her fault? Lately, Jade and the others are readily busy. Jade mutters how come that country loves war this much. Klaus says Nada Shah never changes. No matter how much time they pass, they stay the same. She overhears a customer mentioning that the number of refugees trying to enter the Dragon Kingdom from Nada Shah is insane. This time, the dragons might have to take drastic action. She finds herself asking again if all of this is her fault. She doesn't think there's anything she can do about it, but she really wants to know what is going on. What can she do to help? Maybe she should go over there to Nada Shah. The fairies instantly chime in, saying they should go. She asks if all of them are coming with her, and they answer without hesitation that they are. She tells them she isn't planning to interfere, she only wants to see the situation for herself and figure out what's really happening. And she was just thinking that she would feel a little uneasy going there all by herself. With the help of the fairies and their magic, she went to visit Nada Shah. She left a letter properly explaining where she went. During the time she was in Nada Shah, she was only ever inside the castle. She never saw the cities or the countryside. And at the time of her exile she was locked in a horse carriage and couldn't see anything, so she really doesn't know what it actually looks like. She had no idea. During her time in Nada Shah she was a friend of the Shrine Maiden, so she was living a very luxurious life. She never knew that this was what was going on outside the walls. She looks around in disbelief. What is going on here? Though she never went outside the castle, she could always see the beautiful castle town from the windows. Is this really the same country as that castle town? An elderly woman approaches her and gently asks if she must have come from far away, then hesitantly asks if she might have any food on her. She takes out a few cookies and hands them over. The old woman immediately walks to two children nearby and gives it to them. Apologizing, the woman explains that the village has been suffering for a long time. People are starving, and illness is spreading. She asks how things could have come to this. The old woman explains that all the able-bodied men were called away to fight in the war, leaving too few people to work the fields. Whatever crops they managed to grow are taken by the army and sent to the capital. The farmers are left with nothing and are forced to live in poverty. It is a bleak situation. This country is sick. She can't help wondering how everything ended up this way. Ruri suddenly breaks into a run, startling the fairies as they scramble after her and ask where she's going. She doesn't answer until she stops in the middle of a vast, empty stretch of land. There, she asks them to make a fruit tree grow. In an instant, a tree bursts from the ground, branches heavy with fruit. It's something, at least, but she can't help wondering if it will really be enough for everyone in the village. The fairies ask her if she doesn't want revenge. She admits that she does. She wants revenge on those who hurt her, but the villagers have nothing to do with that. She knows it might make her a hypocrite, but she can't bring herself to watch people suffer and do nothing. And with that thought, she decides that her true target should be the Nadashan royalty. Back in the Dragon Kingdom, Jade suddenly collapses to the floor. Klaus and the others rush to his side, asking if he's alright, but instead of answering, Jade picks up a letter with trembling hands and tells Klaus to read it. Klaus squints at the page, immediately thinking that the handwriting is a mess, and tries to piece together the broken words, leaving, going back, Chelsea. He asks if someone left. Jade snaps back that she left. Panic overtakes him. What is he supposed to do? She left, maybe the cat toys had been too much. Klaus tells him to calm down, pointing out that he doesn't even understand what the letter means yet. He realizes it's from Rory and, somewhat baffled, comments that he didn't know cats could write. Can paws even hold a pen? He suggests they search the castle first before jumping to conclusions. They do, but she's nowhere to be found. Jade starts heading for the door. Klaus demands to know where he thinks he's going. Jade answers that he's going to find Rory and orders him not to stop him. Klaus immediately stops him anyway, pointing out that he has no idea where she is. So where exactly does he plan to go? Jade insists that he has a plan. He'll search randomly until he finds her. Klaus grabs him and tells him not to be ridiculous. For all they know, she could have gone on a short trip. She even wrote Chelsea's name, she might have simply gone to visit. They should send a message to his mother first. Even so, Klaus can't help noting how irrational His Majesty is acting. He has served him for many years, and he has never once seen him behave like this before. Jade mumbles he tries, but he cannot help but worry. After all, he means the cherished one suddenly disappeared. Klaus tells him it is all right. He is sure she will come back to them soon. Meanwhile, Chelsea receives a letter from Klaus and pauses. Shouldn't he be at work right now? That thought alone tells her this must be something important. As she starts reading, she hears footsteps approaching, perfect timing. The door suddenly slams open, and Rory jumps straight into Chelsea's arms. Chelsea barely has time to react before Rory pulls back and urgently says she has to listen. Nadasha is an awful country. Chelsea reminds her to at least say hello first. Rory hurriedly does. Chelsea flicks her on the forehead, calling her a noisy child, then asks what happened. She tells her to sit down properly and explain everything over some tea. Chelsea asks her if she has seen what is happening in Nadasha. Rory replies that she has, and that she truly had no idea things were this bad. She asks why Nadasha is so determined to go to war when its citizens are clearly suffering. Chelsea explains that the main reason is territorial expansion. The Dragon Kingdom possesses vast, valuable land, as well as wealth. In Nadasha, the priests hold immense power and influence, and war benefits them greatly. When war begins, people turn to the gods and pray for protection, and the church profits from that fear. From their perspective, war is a good thing. She adds that this is not the whole story. Many people, especially ordinary citizens, are against the war. However, everything changed once the Shrine Maiden was summoned. Rory asks what she means by that. Chelsea explains that the Shrine Maiden is believed to bring prosperity. If the Shrine Maiden declares that the country should go to war, public opinion naturally shifts in favor of it. Rory asks if that means the reason they were summoned was to start a war. Instead of answering directly, Chelsea asks if she has met her grandson, Joshua. Rory replies that she has. Chelsea says Joshua has been working in Nadasha, investigating the situation surrounding the Shrine Maiden. They cannot act properly against an enemy without understanding their intentions. When Joshua examined the prophecy, several things did not add up. The prophecy is supposed to be ancient, yet it appears relatively new. In particular, the description of the Shrine Maiden's appearance seems to have been added later. The handwriting also resembles that of the High Priest. From Chelsea's perspective, the conclusion is obvious. The Shrine Maiden is a fraud. They summoned people, selected the nicest looking girl, and altered the prophecy afterward to match her. Rory, stunned, asks if that is the case, then why did they even bother summoning them? They could have just chosen anyone. But Cheesy tells her the Shrine Maiden is supposed to be a summoned girl. A girl summoned by magic is easier to sell as a special existence to the people. A random person from the kingdom would likely not be as convincing. Also, a person who was summoned here from a different world would come without any prior knowledge of Nadasha's history. A Shrine Maiden from a different world is therefore much easier to manipulate. It is very frustrating, but it is starting to make sense. She says so Asahi really got manipulated by the higher-ups of Nadasha. They probably told her that the reason she disappeared was because the Dragon Kingdom kidnapped her and she believed them. Since Asahi wants to take her back, she is fine with going to war. She is putting so many people in harm's way. She asks if the war could potentially be prevented just by talking to Asahi and resolving the misunderstanding. The granny says not possible, it's too late. Natasha is already prepared for battle and the people are fired up. Does she remember when the fairies made all magic in Natasha stopped working? That time the priest spread a rumor that all magic stopped working because the people did not trust the Shine Maiden enough. But the Dragon Kingdom have been protecting those ostracized and exiled from Natasha, so she doesn't need to blame herself too much. Also, there is one more thing that makes her doubt that persuading Asahi would be a possible strategy. Even if someone told her that what happened to her wasn't the Dragon Kingdom's fault, she most likely wouldn't believe it. Basically, it would require her to go directly to the castle and talk to Asahi herself. In order to stop this senseless war, she has to meet Asahi in person and explain everything. She has to persuade her to make things right. Just when she thought she finally had separated from Asahi for good. But it has already gone this far. She has to try to help however she can. She, Mariko Aruri, was living life as a normal college student until she was summoned to another world. After coming to this world, she has been able to live peacefully. She admits when she heard there might be a war coming, she was very scared at first. The citizens of the Dragon Kingdom are very strong, so she took comfort in knowing that they were going to be alright. But that doesn't mean the war will be without casualties. Asahi definitely hasn't thought this through or reflected on the consequences of war. Like the fact that innocent people will die because of her, or like by being a key player in this war her own life might be in danger as well. She has definitely not thought about any of these things. That's why she needs to stop Asahi. Chelsea asks her if that is alright with her, reminding she cannot stand Asahi. She bluntly says she cannot stand her, but even so, even though she hates her, it's not like she wants her to die or anything. And as one-sided as it was, they used to be friends once. Chelsea smiles at her kind expression and asks what she plans to do. What is her plan? Ruri says she will enter the castle in her cat form, make her way to Ruei's room, and then shrugs. There is no real plan beyond that. Chelsea says she does not want her putting herself in danger, but Ruri insists she will be fine. With the fairies coming along, she will not be in any danger. Chelsea narrows her eyes and asks if she has thought this through. The fairies are the biggest problem of all. Ruri tells her she will speak with them properly and make sure everything is settled before they go. Chelsea says she cannot stop her if that is what she has decided. She tells her to give it her best, but if the mission becomes dangerous, she must return at once. Ruri smiles faintly. And so her mission to Natasha began. Before leaving, she meets Lydia and asks her for a map that could help her get into the castle or something. Lydia says she is sure that if they looked they could find one in here somehow. But why does she need a map? There are wind fairies that can help her. The little ones are really good at finding stuff. The wind will travel just about everywhere, so the wind fairies see everything. That is why they are experts on finding things she is looking for. Like for example, if she dropped her wallet in the street a couple of days ago, they can help her out. She thinks, whoa, that is crazy specific. Lydia says if she wants to hear more about it she should ask that little one. She heard he is good on terms with the wind fairies. She recalls his name was Joshua. Joshua is a spy after all, so that makes sense. That's what the time fairy told her, but Joshua is currently busy leading a manhunt. She decides not to bother him, thinking how is the manhunt going. And then, she recalls, they're looking for the girl Jade loves. She snaps out of her thoughts mid-flight when the fairies call out, telling her they can see the castle ahead. They ask what she wants to do next. She replies that she wants to find the room Asahi is staying in and asks for their help. They quickly locate it and signal for her to follow. Once inside the castle, she shifts into a cat and moves quietly through the halls. The guards pass by without noticing anything. She knows why Chelsea told her that humans cannot see fairies, but it is still unsettling to watch them stand right in front of people who are completely unaware of their presence. She comes to an abrupt stop when she spots the high priest and the king. Anger flashes across her face as she listens in. They are discussing how they are handling the situation with the priestess. One of them says they have already dealt with those who oppose the war and those who doubt the priestess's legitimacy. According to them, all such people have been exiled. The preparations for war are also going quite well. There is just one thing. It is about the prince. He's still head over heels for the priestess. The king cannot believe he is so thoroughly infatuated with her. Maybe they should send both him and the priestess to the battlefield and get rid of them. Rory freezes in shock. They would send both the prince and the priestess to their deaths. Isn't the prince his own son? He just said he would kill his son without the slightest hesitation. Just what on earth are these people plotting? The high priest then says frankly, the selfish attitude of the priestess is just intolerable, but because of her, donations to the church have been increased and forced. It would be a shame to get rid of her so quickly. The king says he heard that she has been ordering his soldiers around and making them do her bidding, telling them to find her friend or something. The high priest says in hindsight maybe they should have made the girl they exiled shrine maiden instead, since really either one of them would have been fine. But then the king abruptly says that it could not have been her, making her tense. He explains that during the summoning, she alone had remained calm and level-headed. While the others were overwhelmed by the unfamiliar world, she focused on understanding their circumstances and searching for a way to return home. She was perceptive, and that was precisely what made her dangerous. If they had allowed her to remain, she would have eventually realized that the prophecy and the title of priestess were nothing more than inventions. One of the priests responds that, in that case, removing her early had been the right decision. The words leave her stunned. Nada Shah is deeply corrupted, and Asahi may be careless, but this country is beyond reason. They place no value on life other than their own. When she hears them speak of eliminating both the priestess and the prince, a chill runs through her. Asahi is in serious danger. Foolish, reckless Asahi. She is going to get herself killed. It angers her that she has been forced into action because of her, yet she knows she cannot simply abandon her to that fate. The fairies guide her quietly to Asahi's room. Asahi notices the curtains swaying in the wind from the window. Weren't they closed before? She wonders, frowning at the odd sight. Then her eyes settle and she freezes. Rory is standing there. While Rory is in Nada Shah trying to speak with Asahi, back in the Dragon Kingdom, Joshua enters, beaming with relief. Mission complete, he announces, but freezes the moment he meets His Majesty's sharp glare. His heart skips a beat. Did he do something wrong? He asks nervously. The second Joshua returned from his mission, he was caught by the infamous death glare of the Dragon King. Be aware it causes immediate death for smaller animals and weaklings. When he asked what was wrong, he was told that they were desperately looking for Rory, who had disappeared, leaving nothing but a letter behind. Jade says Rory did not disappear until after he had already left for the mission. So he can't even doubt him. The handwriting is so messy that Joshua struggles to make sense of it. He mutters that it seems she's left the castle. Jade grumbles at him to shut his mouth. Joshua quickly says that she'll come back soon. He then asks Klaus if he has spoken to Granny about this and what she said. Klaus replies that when he asked her, she said she hadn't seen Rory. He tried asking the fairies too, but they wouldn't make sense, only saying that she hated it, but was curious, so she went anyway. Joshua thinks over their words. Could it be that she overheard something at her job about the war, and that's where she went? He freezes, his thoughts catching him. Jade notices how he stiffens, and glares, accusing him of knowing something about the situation. He avoids his gaze, saying he's not entirely sure, but based on a previous conversation, he can only think of one place she would go. Nada Shah is going to war, and according to the rumors, the priestess is spearheading the effort. He is pretty certain that Nada Shah was her destination. His Majesty presses now, asking him to tell where she is. But he says he will not tell him now. When he glares at him, Joshua shrugs and tells him not to look at him with such a scary face. It's not like he has any ulterior motives for not telling him. However, he is pretty sure that she wants to keep this a secret, otherwise she would have told him where she was going. So he feels like he cannot just tell him without her permission. Jade frowns. He says he hasn't been told anything about this. Joshua says it's because it was a conversation just between him and Rory. He adds that he can't say exactly where she's going, but if it's that place, she'll definitely stop by his granny's, and with the fairies with her, she'll make contact sooner or later. Klaus exhales, relief showing on his face. He says since Joshua figured it out, they can relax a little, right? But Jade gets up in a hurry, announcing he will go meet her anyway. Klaus blinks. What? Jade says that since she'll stop by the granny's, he'll just wait there for her. Klaus grabs him, tugging as Jade struggles. He says they're about to go to war with Nada Shah. The king can't just abandon his post because of a cat. Jade pushes back. He says he's at his limit and will see her now. Klaus says no, absolutely not, and tells Joshua to help him, who just stands there, frozen in disbelief. Joshua knows that he thinks she's a cat, but this obsession is too much. If he finds out that she's actually human, how would he react? He's getting a little worried. Asahi mutters, "Is it really her?" and reaches out, but Ruri sidesteps without missing a beat. Still, Asahi beams, expressing how happy she is to see her and how worried she has been ever since the abduction. Ruri nods and, before continuing, she casts a magic barrier to ensure no outsiders can overhear. Thoughts race over how much to reveal, and she explains that the situation is not as others have said, she was not kidnapped. Asahi frowns, recalling that the king claimed the opposite. Ruri shakes her head. She tells her the king lied. The truth was that she was exiled and thrown out. And the one behind it was none other than the king himself, together with the high priest that summoned them. The king and high priest are super shady. She cannot trust anything they say. These people have been fooling her all along. They're taking advantage of her for their own benefit. The title of priestess is also just made up, they are using her to make people want to wage war against the Dragon Kingdom. Asahi says but she was told that everyone really wants to go to war. Ruri says that is not true at all. She cannot trust anything the king and priest say. She tells her she overheard the king talking about how he is going to kill her and the prince once he has no use for them. But the next words that Asahi says makes her freeze. She had a fight with everyone, right? What? But the next words that Asahi says makes her freeze. She had a fight with everyone, right? What? Asahi waves it off casually, saying she should have just said so. If she had, Asahi could have helped fix things with everyone. What, did she ever say something like this? Asahi winks at her playfully and tells her not to worry, the prince and everyone in the castle are really nice. She is sure if she just explains herself to everyone they will let her return and they can all be friends again. And then it clicks. Oh. Right. This has happened before. She remembers one time in middle high school when Asahi's followers started noticing her. Ruri was still young and had not figured it all out yet, and she ended up being bullied. It was a difficult time. Naturally, she got very angry, so she retaliated. However, she was very angry, so she spoke to Ase about it. She asked her to please speak to her friends about their behavior. When she told her, her response was they all seem like good friends. She probably played too much and did not notice the watch breaking, right? No matter how much she explained, Asahi's reaction was the same. She could never make sense of it. Since she did not listen to her, Ruri just kind of gave up and she eventually stopped talking to Asahi. Asahi has never understood these kinds of things. Inside she already knew. She already knew, but she kind of figured just if she just talked to her, she would understand. Ruri thinks she should just go home. But as she begins to move, Asahi panics and grabs her. Startled, Ruri jerks her hand away and holds it to her chest, looking at Asahi in disbelief. When she grabbed her, it was like her body exuded something, though she doesn't know what, but it made her very uncomfortable. She only touched her for a second, but she can still kinda sense it. Is this her magic? Ruri's magic doesn't feel like this. Or it might be her charm magic. She did not know. She never knew that this was how she used her charm powers. Before she came to this world, she did not realize that she had the ability to sense other people's magic. She still has goosebumps. She did not know this magic could feel this uncomfortable. She looks up at Asahi when she calls her and says she doesn't want to be separated from her anymore, so she's coming with her. Ruri falls silent for a moment, as though weighing her thoughts, before finally calling Asahi's name. She asks what word would be used to describe their relationship. Asahi answers without hesitation that they are best friends and asks what that has to do with anything. Ruri replies that if that is truly the case, then a best friend should listen. Asahi states that listening is already happening. Ruri shakes her head. Listening has happened, but understanding has not. Hearing words is not the same as believing them. When she mentioned the bullying to her, the response was that everyone involved seemed like good friends. When she mentioned exile, it was dismissed as nothing more than an argument. She always dismisses her concerns and makes her own conclusions. Ruri doesn't understand why. Since she always does that, she has never been there for her when she has been in trouble. But even so, she still says they are best friends. Before leaving, Ruri lets her know she wasn't kidnapped by people from the Dragon King. That's the one thing she hopes she will listen to. As for the other stuff, she said Asahi should think about it carefully and do what she thinks is right. With that, she disappears from the terrace, leaving her alone. To be honest, Ruri is still very worried, but she has told her everything. She just hopes that this time her words got through to her, if only just a little. She tells herself it will be fine, she did what she came to do here and they should just hurry back to Chelsea's place. Later at Chelsea's place, she tells her that she told Asahi everything, but to be honest, she's still worried. Chelsea says from everything she has told her, she does seem like a weird kid. Ruri says she doesn't seem weird. She is weird. Dismissing everything she said, saying she probably just had a fight. She really doesn't understand that girl's thought process. Ruri met Asahi face to face and told her everything, and she told her to carefully to think about everything she said. Ruri believes that Asahi did as she said, but she's worried about what effect her actions will have. If Asahi suddenly started opposing the war, what would that king do to her then? Maybe that will make them get rid of her immediately. She was so convinced that telling her the truth would be the solution, she didn't even stop to consider the possible negative outcomes. Chelsea tells her whatever she's thinking, it probably won't happen anyway, though she guesses she cannot stop her thinking about it completely. She knows this is just coming from her, but she has done what she could. This war is not her fault. It's alright now to think about it anymore. Furthermore, isn't it about time for her to return to the Dragon Kingdom? Ruri asks the granny why and picks up a pile of letters. She asks what they are all about. The granny explains that they are all from Klaus, asking if anyone knows where Ruri is or even if she is still here. Several letters arrive each day. Didn't anyone tell where she was going before leaving? The granny asks. Ruri replies that a letter explaining everything was left behind. The granny sighs. Ruri blurts out that it might seem strange how a letter could be written when reading is not possible. Ruri says words were simply strung together. It may not be the best letter, but it is all that could be done. The granny mentions that apparently the king has been in a state of panic, thinking Ruri ran away from home, though she told Klaus it was not a runaway situation. Several letters have also arrived from His Majesty himself. The king asks if anything has caused displeasure or if there is anything about the kingdom that is upsetting. He requests that such matters be reported, promising to improve them, and emphasizes the desire for Ruri to return home. Apparently, His Majesty has been desperate to search but has been restrained by aides. Thus, he wants Ruri to come back. Late in the evening, with Chelsea's assistance, a letter to His Majesty is written, and departure for the Dragon Kingdom occurs first thing the next morning. Kotoreo, the pet, is nowhere to be seen, raising the question of where he might have gone. After a while, Ruri arrives back at the Dragon Kingdom. She decides it is best to just go and apologize. Before taking another step, someone grabs her. It is Jade, his face lighting up with relief as he pulls her into a warm hug. He then asks her where in the world has she been leaving nothing but that Vogue letter behind. He was worried. She replies she is sorry, she had no idea it would become such a mess. She also apologizes to Klaus for making him worry. He tells her not to apologize, actually he should be thanking her. His Majesty is completely useless when she's not around. So for coming back home, thank you so much. He says finally the king will be able to catch up on his work. He thinks if he needs to work she starts to move but he quickly holds her and mutters where does she think she's going. She says if she stays here she will end up distracting him but he says no, he won't allow it. Does she know how long it has been since he last touched her? She asks wouldn't he get distracted. He replies he would be more distracted if he couldn't see her anymore. He would just be thinking about what she's up to and he wouldn't be able to do his job properly. Even Klaus insists it is fine, after all, when she is by his side his mood improves and when he's happy he works harder. With nothing else to do, she just decides to sleep. A quiet room, the sound of papers rustling and the scratching sound of Jade's pen, this is nice it feels like she has come back home. At first, she thought she wanted to go back to Chelsea's house. She wonders when this place became home for her. There are many other things she should be thinking about, like Asahi, Nadasha's king and high priest. Or her revenge. But she guesses that can wait a little while. In other words, she's returning to the lazy life of sleeping on the king's lap. She tells the king she wants to go on a stroll, and he immediately objects, refusing to trust her to leave again. She bats her eyes dramatically, tears glistening as she pleads, asking if he is really not going to say yes. The king can't help but be enchanted by her tactics and finally relents, but only on one condition, she must take an escort. She agrees and steps outside, walking alongside the escort. This person's name is Finn. He is one of Jade's guards and currently her escort. In the Dragon Kingdom, the king is chosen based on strength, not on blood. Finn is the second strongest person in the kingdom. In other words, if Jade wasn't here, Finn would be the Dragon King. Why is this important person her escort for walks? He tells her not to worry about it. Guarding the precious one is the position of honor. He then asks her if she has ever been to the 5th district. When she says no, he explains it is the district where most of the Dragon Kingdom soldiers are. The soldiers have been saying they want to meet her. Right now they are probably assembled in the courtyard for training, and asks her if she would like to stop by and introduce herself. He believes that would make them very happy. But on a second thought, the training can get quite violent and it's really filthy. Maybe it is a bad idea, but she quickly says she doesn't mind. She straightens with barely contained excitement and declares that she would love to go. Even so, a pang of worry tugs at her. The people of the kingdom are strong, but it is war, and she isn't fighting on the front lines. Witnessing their efforts firsthand feels like the least she can do. The moment she steps onto the training ground, a man collapses before her, blood streaking his face and an arrow embedded in his chest. She freezes, certain he's dead, a fallen body pierced before her eyes. Then, impossibly, he sits up and greets the captain with casual surprise, saying he hadn't realized he was here. His gaze shifts to her, bright with excitement, and he reaches toward her. She stumbles back in shock, but Finn's calm voice cuts through her panic, reminding her that the people of the Dragon Kingdom are resilient. This wound? Nothing. It'll heal in no time. So it's always this violent? She asks, wide-eyed. Of course, Finn replies. It's training. A teasing voice adds that she may be a cat, but she's still a girl, no wonder she's startled. The man then turns to the soldiers, saying he knows she's fluffy and irresistible, but do they really think it's wise to touch her with bloody hands? The soldiers quickly run off to wash their hands. She offers a grateful smile. He waves it off. No problem. Once they're clean, she can let them pet her a little. The Dragon Kingdom does love small, fluffy creatures, after all. This extremely beautiful person is Isekais. Even though he looks like this, he's the Prime Minister of the Dragon Kingdom. Finn asks him what is the Prime Minister doing in the 5th district. It replies he is there for the eye candy. Of course, sometimes the body needs a break from work. Even though he is this pretty and possesses many womanly charms, he is male. It's not fair. Somehow, when she looks at him, she feels defeated. Soon, the soldiers return, all brimming with excitement, announcing that they've washed their hands. The citizens of the Dragon Kingdom are good people, she thinks, and since that time with Asahi, she had secretly hoped for some change. Just then, Joshua bursts into the training grounds, worry etched across his face. She asks if he had gone somewhere, and he explains that he went scouting in Nadasha because of the war. They've officially declared war on the Dragon Kingdom, he says, with the priestess leading them. It's not like Ruri expected Asahi to fully listen to her, but she could have at least not escalated the situation. Stupid Asahi. It has been days since Nadasha's declaration of war. Things have gotten somewhat hectic in Drakadam Castle. But there was not much a cat could do to contribute. Now that it has come to this, she knows what she must do. First of all, she needs to go back to work. Ruri goes to the market as the owner has asked her to bring meat and vegetables. She starts to leave, but freezes when she hears voices discussing Nadasha and when they're going to strike. Lately, war has become a common topic among the townspeople, though never with any particular urgency. She looks at the sky, the weather seems nice. It feels like everybody is here. No stranger to war. They are also indifferent while she cannot get her mind off it. Maybe one day she will be like the others. She will get used to it. Her thoughts abruptly end when she notices something ahead wobbling and dragging itself along the ground, and she slows her steps, inching closer until she can properly glance at the creature lying there. What are they called again? Clowns. She has seen them before in aquariums, but this one is nothing like those. This one is huge. She hesitates, then starts to reach out to touch it, but the moment her fingers draw near, it suddenly blurts water, making her yelp and jump back in fright, her heart slamming as she realizes it spoke. The creature looks dried out, its surface, and when it finally sinks in that it was asking for water, panic floods her all at once because this is bad, and the thought strikes her that it is going to die if she does not do something quickly. Meanwhile, the Clyon itself drifts into a memory, one where it asks Ruri's pet whether he had been given a name by a human, and the answer comes calmly, without hesitation, that yes, he had been given one. The Clyon, startled, asks again if that is really true, him, the wind fairy who hates humans more than anyone else, and the reply remains steady as he says that names are nice and that the Cleon should get one too. The Cleon asks whether having a name truly makes him that happy, and he admits that it does, that he had not understood the weight of it until he received one of his own. He tells the Cleon to call him Wind for now, saying that she will understand once she gets a name herself, and when the Cleon calls him Water instead, he corrects her and explains that he is no longer Wind, that his name is Kotoru, the name Ruri gave him, a name that belongs to him and him alone. When the Cleon awakens from the memory, she finds her watching her closely, her attention shifting to the thing in her hand as she asks what it is. She replies that it is salt and asks why that matters, then adds that Cleons are sea creatures, so she thought salt water would be better for her, which immediately sends her into a panic as she insists that she lives in rivers and urgently tells her to get that away from her. She looks genuinely surprised by the revelation, though when she thinks about the fact that she had been flying, she quickly reasons that she is clearly not a normal Cleon, but she snaps that this is not the point at all and insists that she give her a name already. She asks why she even needs a name in the first place, and she grumbles irritably that someone keeps bragging about having one, making it obvious that she means the one she named Kotoru, the boar-like dire beast, which causes her to pause and ask whether they are even talking about the same Kotoru, only for her to explain with mounting frustration that Kotoru is a wind fairy who threw himself into a body with earth affinity and is now an idiot who cannot even use his own powers. According to the River Cleon, there are basically 4 types of fairies in this world, and there are only 12 cities at the highest rank of all. Kotoru is one of those 12, the over fairy who governs the wind. Fairies do not have bodies of their own, but they sometimes possess dire beasts or human bodies, which allows them to take on physical form. She tells her that she did not have a body until recently herself and that she picked this one up so she could meet her. She asks her whether she picked it up, and she replies yes, that she found it dried out by the river, which makes her realize that they can use dead bodies. Looking smug, she says she heard she liked cute creatures, so she picked out the cutest one she could find, and she also heard from the fairies following her around that she tends to prefer fuzzy things, so it seems she failed and should have picked something fuzzier instead. She then says there seem to be plenty of demi-humans around and suggests that maybe she can get a do-over and hunt one down at random, but before she can go on, she quickly blurts out that her current form is perfectly fine, thank you. She exclaims that this is very good, and in that case, she wants a name. She thinks about it, fully aware that this is bizarre, but decides that whatever happens, it does not matter. She asks her whether all she wants is a name, and then she suggests Rin, and the reaction is immediate as her ears perk up at once, her posture turning attentive before she suddenly starts jumping in pure, unrestrained happiness. That is her name. It feels right, feels good, and to her it is great because she likes it, because it is just lovely. And just like that, in that simple exchange and shared moment, she realizes she has made a new friend, and her name is Rin. When she later goes to report this to King Jade and the others, she notices that their reaction is kind of odd, which makes her think that over fairies are a big deal, even to the Dragon King, and that curiosity eventually leads her to ask Joshua about it, wondering whether the Cleon was correct. Joshua freaks out, repeating an over fairy, of course they would be floored. She replies she kind of figured, but then he glances at the fairy in question and asks what is another one doing here. She replies she heard she had given a name to another fairy so she wanted her to give her name. Joshua looks noticeably more worn out as he asks whether she gave the Cleon a name. She replies that she did, and immediately he grabs his forehead in visible frustration. The reaction startles her, and she asks anxiously whether she did something wrong, but he quickly tells her that she did not and that he simply needs a moment. Still confused, she asks what the big deal is, and he explains that she made a pact with an over fairy, adding that shock is a very natural reaction to that revelation. She repeats the word pact, testing it out, and he looks at her in disbelief before asking whether she subjugated her without even knowing it, bluntly stating that she is beyond reckless. A pact, a subjugation, those words swirl in her head, and she slowly reasons that she must have made a pact with Lydia before, but she does not think she did anything like that with Rin, which leads her to ask what subjugation even means in the first place. She asks whether naming someone actually does something, and he sighs, admitting that he cannot really blame her for not knowing, before explaining that in this world, naming a fairy is a way of forming a pact with them. Most pacts, he says, are formed on equal terms, but naming pacts are far more binding on one party than regular ones. She looks frightened now, but still clearly confused, and it is Rin who steps in and says she will give an example. Rin asks her to imagine, hypothetically, that she ordered Lydia and Rin to kill each other, which makes her recoil in horror as she insists she would never do something like that. Rin immediately reassures her that of course she knows that and that it is only a hypothetical, but explains that if such an order were ever given, Lydia would be able to refuse because she is bound on equal terms, whereas Rin would not be able to refuse because a naming pact was formed with her. Trying to piece it together, she asks whether Kotaro is the same, and Rin confirms that he is, just like her, which causes the shock on her face to deepen as the weight of what she unknowingly did finally sinks in. Rin quickly tells her not to get so worked up over it and reminds her that she already explained that both Kotaro and Rin are over fairies, making them two of the most powerful beings in the world and, naturally, far more powerful than she is. Rin explains that if she truly did not want to be subjugated, she would have killed her on the spot without hesitation, then casually asks whether Kotaro seems like someone who was grudgingly subjugated by her. The image of his lovey-dovey eyes immediately comes to mind, and she admits that no, he does not. Rin concludes that there is no problem at all and that she does not need to worry her pretty little head about it, adding lightly that she would never demand anything unreasonable of them anyway. She quickly agrees that of course she would not, which makes Rin giggle, and then Rin adds, without hesitation, that she loves her. At first, Rin explains, she only came to see what the big deal was, but after meeting her and talking with her, she thinks she is in love and says that she is very glad it was her who named her. Her eyes grow glassy at those words, and she thanks her, telling Rin that she loves her too. Joshua watches the scene with a blank expression as a Cleone and a cat have the best of times together, their happiness so absurdly wholesome that he briefly thinks that if His Majesty were to see this, he would quite literally kneel over dead. Before he can even process that thought, other fairies rush over to her as well, openly declaring that they love her too, and Joshua can only watch helplessly as she is suddenly attacked from all sides by enthusiastic hugs. Later, when things finally calm down, she asks Joshua whether he has been busy lately, and he replies that he has, explaining that he has been keeping an eye on things in Nadasha. After a short pause, he calls her by name and casually asks whether it would not be a good idea to tell His Majesty the truth, that she is a human and not a cat. He goes on to explain that the priestess princess is currently leading Nadasha's armies, and if the priestess were to be taken prisoner, she would definitely talk about her, and considering all of that, he does not think she will be able to keep this secret indefinitely. Ruri realizes Joshua is right. She should tell King Jade she was summoned to this world with Asahi and her groupies. And that even though Asahi has the wrong idea, the whole reason she started this war was to bring her back. She thinks he deserves to hear the truth from her. She calls out to Joshua, suddenly looking worried, but before she can say what she wants, a voice says, "What is this all about?" "It's Isekais." Joshua blurts how long has he been there. He tensely mutters she's a human. He heard that. Both instantly start acting clueless, muttering to each other if they really said that. They do not think they did. He gives them a blank look before harshly picking Ruri up and announcing they should take this somewhere else. Joshua says he heard the whole thing. Didn't he? No talking their way out of this. He then sits on the chair and puts his leg over the other and insists that they explain themselves. Joshua says okay, he will start and gives him a quick rundown. After he finishes, he puts a finger on his chin thoughtfully and remarks, "Interesting." He gets most of it now. But he still cannot make sense of his word, Klaus said. That he is glad that she's not a human, Joshua says if he knows his dad, he probably had some reason to say it. Isekais agrees. He also tells Ruri, while he agrees that she should probably speak up sometime soon, he thinks it is fine for her to do what suits her. She looks dumbfounded and says is it? He replies she had a perfectly valid reason for not sharing that. And it is not like the way they see her is going to do a 180 once they know. He doesn't imagine they will get too upset over the timing of when she chooses to share it either. That's not just who they are. In short, they will be fine either way. So it depends on how she feels about it. He just wants her to remember that the longer she spends waffling over it, the harder it will be to bring up later. That is his big concern, so he would say the sooner she says it the better. Ruri blushes and says he's so nice. He says to be frank, she could probably get away with staying a cat. His Majesty likes it well enough that way. Then his eyes widen as it dawns on him that she uses a bracelet to turn into a cat. Why did she visit Klaus in cat form in the first place? Joshua asks what was the reason again. She was being chased by strange men, right? She replies yeah, a pair of ruffians. She got away from them, but her hair and eye color are sort of rare. She did have a hood to conceal herself under, but she figured it would be best to keep a low profile until she reached Klaus' house. He asks rare. She replies oh yeah, and there was this other suspicious guy who spotted her. She figured he was a trafficker, so she noped out of that situation real quick. Like he was wearing black from head to toe and only his eyes were visible. And he was really fixated on the color of her hair. Joshua raises his eyebrow in surprise and says why? Her hair isn't that rare a color, is it? But Isekais seems to be in thought, saying a rare hair color and a man in all black. He then looks at her and says he's curious. What kind of color does she mean by rare exactly? She casually says platinum blonde. Why? Both men freeze for a moment, and before we know it, they're clinging to each other for dear lives, asking each other if this never occurred to them. They never thought she would be right under their noses. He turns to her and asks her to take off her bracelet for a moment. She asks if it has to be right now, sounding a little nervous. He answers right away yes, right now. She hesitates and says she can't take it off by herself. That doesn't stop him at all. He tells her he'll do it for her and to just hurry up. Even Joshua looks stunned. He was pretty sure they weren't supposed to push their beloved child into anything. The bracelet comes off. She turns human again, platinum hair spilling out, and both of them freeze. Joshua, on the other hand, immediately drops to the floor with a dramatic groan. What has he been running himself ragged for all this time? She blinks at him and asks what's wrong. Isekais sighs and tells her it's nothing she needs to worry about. She still steps closer and says he looks like he's been having a rough time. But she has to get to work soon. She puts the bracelet back on, and just like that, she turns into a cat again and leaves. Once she's gone, Joshua mutters, exhausted, that he's really not sure he wants to tell His Majesty about this. Isekais points out that he already promised to keep it a secret. Still, if she doesn't come clean herself, Joshua is going to be stuck on search duty forever. Isekais shrugs. Too bad, his father is the one who started this mess in the first place. Then his eyes sharpen all of a sudden. Joshua notices and asks what's wrong. Isekais says he thought he felt something just now. Or maybe not. Meanwhile, an official asks His Majesty when he plans to take a lady and marry. Without a hint of concern, he replies that he's busy. Then he looks at Ruri, gently touching her, and says he already has her. He doesn't need a queen right now. He's got all the company he needs right here. The aide tells him he should save those kinds of expressions for when he's in the presence of a lady. Jade immediately fires back that she is a lady. Both Joshua and Isekais look like they'd rather be anywhere else. The aide says he's completely missing the point, then quickly turns to Ruri and tells her she needs to back him up here. Ruri flinches, clearly caught off guard, but tries to be polite about it. She says she doesn't think it's a good idea to force things on people. Maybe it would be better to wait until King Jade is actually interested in getting married. Jade says Ruri is right. The aide immediately snaps that he will be back with even more portraits. Next time, he'll make sure to narrow it down to one. The king sighs and mutters that if only the man would let the matter drop. Klaus says calmly that he can't. He knows it. Jade's marriage is something all the aides agree on, himself included, of course. Jade shoots back that he doesn't need Klaus teaming up with them against him. Ruri tilts her head, the smile fading just a little. She realizes this isn't something to laugh off. It isn't just about the Dracodom. Apparently the marriageable age in most of this world's societies is lower than it was in those of his world. If she really cannot go back to her original world, then she's going to have to live out of her life in this one. And she wishes she could get married. If she were to get married here, she figures it would probably be to a demi-human. And if that were the case, then they'd have kids, right? Her thoughts wander, and she starts imagining them. She immediately loves them. Would their child be soft and fuzzy? Soft and fuzzy. That actually sounds really nice. She finds herself wishing she could have a soft, fuzzy baby someday. And she supposes that means she'd need to find herself a soft, fuzzy husband first. Misunderstandings continue to arise in the Dracodom. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the king asks the priest about their war readiness. The priest replies that there are no issues to report and that he's already passed the necessary instructions along to the nobles and the others. Before he can go on, the king cuts him off. He's noticed Asahi standing there. Turning to her, he says that they have quite the guest, the priestess princess herself. She approaches him quietly and says she's here because of Ruri. The king answers at once that, of course, it would be about her. From what they've been told, it seems Ruri has been thoroughly brainwashed by the Drakodom. Asahi freezes, clearly shocked. Then she bursts out angrily that first they kidnapped her, and now they've brainwashed her too. That Drakodom is absolutely awful. The king nods, saying they are despicable creatures, after all. If they intend to rescue her friend from the clutches of evil, then Asahi will need to do her part in the upcoming battle of priestesses. At that, the priest steps forward and says he has something for her. She opens the pouch and finds a rock inside. The priest explains that it's a protective charm. If she ever feels in danger on the battlefield, she should throw it toward the enemy, it will keep her safe. She thanks them over and over, clutching the pouch and promising that she'll keep it safe. The priest gives her a gentle smile and tells her he will pray to God for both her safety and her friends. Reassured, she bows politely and takes her leave. Once she's gone, the king exhales and remarks that they are truly fortunate the priestess princess is so dim-witted. Earlier, she had marched right up to them, pointed a finger, and asked with wide, earnest eyes whether it was true. Ruri had said they were all liars. When she asked that, when he saw the looks on everyone's faces, he admits that he was worried. Just for a moment. Thankfully, she's an idiot. The priest says he's still surprised. The other girl survived, even after being left alone in the woods. He had thought that would be the end of her. The king waves it off and asks what of it. She's only one girl. What could she possibly do to stop them? Even if she's still alive, she's insignificant in the grand scheme of things. After all, they have something special. Something that will ensure victory. When the time comes, even the Draconians will be powerless before them. Their great magic, their overwhelming strength, all of it will amount to nothing. At long last, their magic potency will be complete, and when that happens, they will finally be able to punish those wretched Draconians for everything. The king straightens, his voice calm and certain. There's nothing more to prepare. Everything is already in place. It's time for war. Euclase has picked up the scruff of her neck and is now holding her off somewhere. But before they get to that, her name is Ruri and she was a normal college student until recently. He spent years plagued by his childhood friend Asahi, who was the furthest thing from normal. And just when she had finally started freeing herself from her, they somehow got someone to a magical world together. And that was only the start of a lot more madness. She got this bracelet that turns her into a cat, but then a guy who she met in cat form told him he is glad she is not a human. That made it kind of hard to tell him she was actually human. And that brings them to the present. She thinks to herself, war could be breaking out any day now. Where might he be taking her? He suddenly stops and with a grin says here they are and takes off her ring. She asks him what is the big idea all of a sudden, and why are they out in the town? He grins and says she has to ask. What else? Shopping. She looks confused and he glares, pointing an accusatory finger saying to begin with, that dress has been bugging him since he first saw it. It is clearly designed for ease of movement and absolutely nothing else. He asks her if it's dawned on her yet that she's in the capital. If she's going to be here, she should dress like it. Have a little style. She just stares at him, completely dumbfounded. Then her shoulders slump and she turns pessimistic almost instantly, saying she knew it. She knew she stuck out like a sore thumb. And it had nothing to do with the fairies at all. The very next second, he grabs her by the wrist and starts dragging her along, announcing that they're going shopping. She barely has time to react before they're inside an upscale boutique. Staff are neatly lined up in elegant rows, welcoming them in. The staff greet them politely and thank them for visiting the establishment. The manager steps forward with a practiced smile and remarks that it seems he's brought along a lovely companion today. He answers easily that yes, he has. He's here to find some proper attire for her. Then he turns to her with a grin and asks what she's waiting for. She should go ahead and pick something. She immediately starts panicking. She blurts out that she absolutely cannot shop at a place like this. It's way too upscale. One glance at the prices and she knows it would wipe out every bit of her savings from her part-time job. He tells her to relax. He's paying. That just makes her panic more. She argues that she can't let him do that. Before she can say anything else, he grabs her face, forcing her to look at him, his expression suddenly stern. He tells her no talking back. Then just as quickly, he brightens again, smiling like nothing happened, and tells her to pick out anything she likes. She hesitantly looks around and checks the price tag on one dress. There are way too many zeros. She nearly short circuits. She quickly calls out to him and admits that she doesn't actually know what's fashionable here. Then, a little embarrassed, she asks if he could pick something out for her instead. That seems to be all the invitation he needs. He immediately starts grabbing several outfits off the racks, casually telling the staff he'll take them. And just like that, she's swept into a whirlwind tour of shop after shop. Dresses, coats, she ends up trying on everything, basically putting on a full fashion show all by herself. By the time they're finally done, she's completely exhausted. He, on the other hand, looks just as energetic as when they started and cheerfully declares that there's no better stress relief than retail therapy. They should do this again sometime. She agrees, but quickly adds that next time, she plans on paying for herself. Okay. He grumbles that she's no fun and reminds her that he already told her he had her covered. She hesitates before saying that the thing is, it really feels wrong accepting that much charity. He just winks at her and tells her it's fine. He's been so busy dealing with war-related matters lately that he hasn't even had time to shop for himself. So honestly, he's grateful she tagged along with him today. She pauses, then asks if that means he's using his precious break time on her. He tells her again that it's retail therapy and not to worry about a thing. Part of her can't help feeling like she's taking advantage of him. But even so, she got to chat with people around the castle in her human form, and she even got to go on a proper shopping trip. All of that happened because he invited her out in the first place. She smiles, a little shy, and says she should really be the one who's grateful. She doesn't know the first thing about fashion here, after all. Then she beams and thanks him for everything he's done for her today. He smiles back and says that's more like it. It's much better seeing her say those things with a smile on her face. After that, he decides to order some cake. They start eating, but then a Cleone suddenly attacks the cake and starts nibbling at it. She's definitely seen that happen on TV before, but she pretends she didn't see a thing. She calmly ignores it, takes the first bite, and says it's really good. He looks relieved and says he's glad she likes it. The atmosphere slowly shifts again when she speaks up softly, saying she wants to talk about Nadasha. About the people who were summoned here with her. She asks if Nadasha is a princess, she assumes, and whether the two of them were close. She answers that yeah, they go back a ways. Even if Nadasha is being lied to, she's still taking part in a war. And she can't help wondering what's going to happen to her once all of this is over. Yuklos says he doubts Nadasha will get off completely scot-free. But she was summoned against her will, and she's clearly being manipulated, so he doesn't think she'll be treated as harshly as the king or the head priest. Then he adds that once she's taken into custody, he expects she'll raise a huge fuss trying to find her. Even just imagining that makes Ruri shudder. Yuklos says he doubts anyone would ever connect the dots between her and Kitty. And honestly, if they did, he thinks people would probably be overjoyed rather than upset. She stands up and says they should head back. Ruri pauses, then says that before they leave, she thinks they should get some cake for Lydia. Everyone says that she has no reason to worry about telling the truth about herself. About letting them know she's a human. And she agrees. Even with what Klaus said that one time, she knows he wouldn't treat her any differently if he knew the truth. The same is true of King Jade. She knows that she really does, on an intellectual level. So why is she still hesitating? Later, she tells Lydia that it is because of King Jade. It is the way he looks at her, like she is just his pet kitty. That is why. Lydia becomes excited and asks if it is really true. She replies that it is. She means it. There are also times when it would be so easy to get the wrong idea. Would any normal person act this way around a cat? Lydia murmurs what if the real reason she does not want to admit it is that it has gotten too awkward because she has put it off for too long. The words hit her straight in the chest. She admits it softly. If she told him, he would probably be crushed. Why had she not come out with it from the start? Lydia tells her to hang in there. If he starts treating her differently, Lydia will protect her. She thinks about the fact that Yuklos bought her all those nice dresses, and she will not have any occasion to wear them if she stays a cat. Technically, she let him pick out most of her things, but she did choose one hair clip herself. Even then, he bought a bunch of other things to go with it, so her attempt at being thrifty had been completely undone. Everyone treats her so nicely, it would be wrong to keep lying to them. She decides to think about it more, after consulting Chelsea. Thanks to excuses like that, she made no real progress. As she spent her days in sun bath indolence, the war preparations continued. Until finally, Natasha began marching upon the Draco-Democratic. Joshua comes to tell her that Natasha is finally invading. They are crossing the Dracodam border in a matter of days. She says he said it so casually. Isn't that a big deal? Joshua continues that word has it the priest, this princess is with the army, he's guessing she's coming in person to rescue her. She drops her head in despair. That idiot, she warned her. Joshua clears his throat. He tells her that for what it's worth, their forces have orders to bring her in alive. She starts to breathe easier, but Joshua then drops the bomb, that there are no guarantees she will be in one piece. Ruri shudders and says that sounds ominous. Joshua wants her to understand this is humans versus draconians. The power difference is staggering. On top of that, having a thirst for battle is part of their nature. It is hard for them to pull their punches. Humans are kinda squishy. Ruri retorts that no, humans are just freaking strong. Most people would not smile and say hello with arrows sticking out of their body. She gives him a side eye and suggests maybe she should go with him to the battlefield. Joshua mutters that is not going to happen. His Majesty would never allow it. She suggests that maybe if she asks nicely. He cuts her off and tells her that no matter how cutely she gazes up at him, that is one thing he does not plan to budge on. Jade says no right away. She tries again, fluttering her eyelids, giving him her big, pleading eyes. But he stiffens, anger flashing across his face. He snaps that no means no. This is war, not a game. She tells him she is aware it is no game. She is not asking to fight. She only wants to watch from a safe place. She promises she will not cause any trouble. Would that be all right? He opens his mouth, but before he can answer, Yuklus steps forward, voice curious. Why not? Jade frowns and his tone hardens as he asks what if something happens to her, but then Yuklus retorts, does he want her running away again? That makes him pause, his wide eyes filled with anger, unblinking now. While Yuklus says if he doesn't then he should assign her a guard and keep an eye on her. Ruri speaks quickly, words tumbling out, she will have her fairies to protect her too, even an over-fairy. Rin sneakily adds with her around, she could be kept safe, even if the entire draconian army turned on her. Jade buries his hands in his face, exhaling sharply. Fine, he mutters. But there are conditions. After King Jade lays out a list of strict rules, he finally agrees to let her tag along. Even though she will not fight, it will be her first time seeing a war firsthand. She has to admit to being a bit scared, but the king of Natasha and the head priest were talking about sending Asahi to die. What are they going to do to her? She cannot just sit by and watch. A few days later, Natasha's army crossed the border. The army invading the Dracodium numbered in hundreds of thousands. Meanwhile, the troops assembled to defend against them were a mere few thousands men. She was horrified and said there were barely any of them. Will they be all right? Rin tells her not to worry, they are Dragonians, if anything, this is overkill for them. She glances at her and says that he means Finn. Rin clarifies that Finn is quite strong. Even if the entire front line goes berserk, she is confident that Finn could keep them in line. Finn steps forward and addresses the army. He announces that they are about to fight against humans. Whatever they do, they must not go overboard. Most of their forces are weak conscripts who had no choice in coming here. They will also have their prince and the priest's princess with them. No one is to harm them. A ripple of murmurs runs through the soldiers. Their eyes gleam with excitement and smiles twist into cruel expressions. Even as Finn speaks, their eagerness seems to teeter on the edge of chaos. Somehow, Finn is not reassured. Well, there is a proposal to put non-draconian demi-humans on the front lines to narrow the gap in strength, but everyone disagrees. Where would the fun be in that? The soldiers themselves would never stand for it. They are positively itching for a fight, their muscles tense, their eyes bright with anticipation. The situation is already a fine, chaotic mess. Jade tells Finn that he will have to keep the soldiers in line himself. Finn thinks that His Majesty is asking far too much of him. The weight of responsibility presses down on his shoulders even before the battle begins. Then the armies clash. Steel rings against steel, cries of men and beasts fill the air, and the Draconians roar in unison. Finn calls out to his line, warning them not to go overboard. They shout that they understand, but their expressions betray them. Their eyes glint with excitement, their cruel smiles suggest restraint is the last thing on their minds. Before long, the army is utterly defeated. Finn cannot help but feel underwhelmed. He wonders if the king of Natasha really just marches his forces up and hopes for the best, or if there is more to the situation than meets the eye. Suddenly, someone comes running urgently toward Commander Finn. They report that they have located what appears to be the prince and the priestess princess. Ruri watches from above, scanning the battlefield. She realizes that the battle is already over and suspects that the Princess Asahi has likely been found. Her eyes finally settle on her. The princess is being captured by the enemy soldiers. She is completely unprepared for battle, her attire entirely unsuitable for the battlefield. Ruri wonders why she even came here. The fairies flit anxiously around Ruri, their small forms trembling. One of them speaks urgently, warning her that something is very wrong. Ruri asks what they mean, but they only mutter that they feel very bad. It's going to get sucked up, they repeat. Confused, she presses them for clarification. Again, they insist, it's all getting sucked up. Everything. Meanwhile, Finn approaches the prince and the priestess. He immediately recognizes the prince and turns to the girl beside him. Who is the priestess? He asks quickly. Asahi glares at him and pouts. She says firmly. She explains that she knows exactly who they are. According to her, these are the same kidnappers who took Ruri. They even brainwash her, convincing her that she is evil. Asahi demands without hesitation that they return Ruri immediately. Finn looks mildly surprised. He wonders what she means by kidnapping and brainwashing. Who is she referring to? He thinks of the cat and dismisses the thought. She cannot possibly mean her, can she? He asks again, more directly, then who exactly are they talking about? Asahi's eyes narrow, her voice sharp. Ruri. They kidnapped her, right? Finn frowns and replies hesitantly that he does not believe so. Her gaze hardens, and she snaps, liar. He holds his ground, insisting firmly they do not know anyone named Ruri, nor have they kidnapped anyone by that name. He tells her that he thinks there may be some kind of misunderstanding, but she snaps, insisting that it will take more than words to fool her. He wonders if this impasse is going to last, while she demands, like a stubborn child, that he return Ruri immediately. He cannot make sense of the situation and wonders what in the world is happening. Meanwhile, Ruri turns to the fairies. She asks what is wrong and why someone is wandering aimlessly in the air. She questions what they mean by saying the magic is being sucked up. Then she turns to Rin and asks what is happening. Rin replies that the magic in the area is flowing elsewhere. Her posture stiffens as the realization hits, it could be face-eyed. Ruri asks what that means. Rin explains that it is a type of dark magic, coined by humans long ago. When she remains confused, she asks if Ruri understands how magic works in this world. Ruri replies that the fairies lend their aid when magic is needed. Rin confirms, gravely, that this is exactly how it works. Humans cannot see fairies, so they do not believe in them, and fairies won't lend their aid to people who do not even believe they exist. That's why humans cannot use strong spells. Anything that needs more than they have in their own innate magic pools is beyond them. So humans came up with spells that could possibly draw magic from the world. With those, there's no need to ask the fairies. They just extract however much magic they need, draining weaker fairies dry and killing them in the process. She begins to panic, her voice trembling as she urges Rin to leave before she disappears as well. Rin raises an eyebrow, a faint, smug smile tugging at her lips. She remarks that it is sweet of her to worry, but assures her that she will be fine. With a touch of arrogance, she adds that no spell within a human's reach could ever strip an over-fairy of his power. She glances around, her expression darkening slightly. Face-eyed, she explains, was so immoral that it fell out of use and disappeared long ago, or so he had thought. Perhaps some fragment of it had survived in ancient literature. She presses her, voice edged with fear. She wants to know what is going to happen. It is difficult to say, he admits, but more and more magic is being absorbed. And it is not limited to one place. There are others. Her heart races as she asks if the king and the high priests are behind this. They said that they are targeting Asahi. She decides immediately that she must inform Finn without delay. Rin tells her firmly to stay where she is. It is too dangerous to move. Before Ruri can respond, Rin conjures a shimmering water membrane around her, a protective barrier that hums with energy. Then without warning, a violent explosion tears through the air. She jumps back, eyes wide, heart racing. Her gaze sweeps toward the source, and a chill runs down her spine as the realization hits. The blast came from the area where Asahi and Finn were. It happened in the blink of an eye. Finn immediately as Asahi threw that rock on them. He quickly asked for fairies' help and created a barrier, but it got sucked in. Something just exploded. At least he thinks it did, but there's no shock way. He realizes a water membrane has formed about everyone. Rin murmurs that was too close, making Finn shocked. He asks friend what is she doing here and if Rory is safe. Rin replies of course, she is. She is in a membrane. Like his. Finn asks her if she was the one who just guarded all of them. She replies yes, that is right. Finn goes and says he offers his gratitude, thank you for saving him and his comrades. He then asks but what was that explosion? He heard more than just one boom back there. She says. Nadasha's ultimate weapon, she presumes. She did not expect them to resort to face-id magic. So when it looked like the rock absorbed her barrier, he was not imagining things. This magic works by forcibly drawing power from the world itself. As the magic is drained away, spells lose their effectiveness and collapse into nothing. Against a fairy of her level, however, it is little more than a nuisance. Even so, she can still sense other stones nearby. There must be more people armed with them. He turns sharply to his men and orders them to search immediately for any soldiers carrying stones like the one they just encountered. Every second matters. Asahi stares at him in shock and points out that he protected their prisoners as well. Her voice softens as she thanks him. Ren observes quietly that she does not appear to be carrying any more stones. He then asks if she is able to detect them. She explains that the stones absorb the surrounding magic, leaving behind an unmistakable, unpleasant sensation. She gestures sharply in one direction, then another, indicating multiple locations. She adds that none of them can afford another explosion while Rory is still present. Searching hundreds of thousands of soldiers one by one would trap them here indefinitely. He closes his eyes briefly and thanks her again, tension etched into his expression. Still hovering in the air, Rory watches and realizes that things seem to be settling down, at least for the moment. She decides she might be able to help as well. She descends quickly and lands behind Finn, calling out to him. He spins around at the sound of her voice and immediately tells her that it is not safe here yet. She counters that the battle appears to be over and that Rin has already raised barriers. She says she wants to help gather the stones. Finn warns her that they could still detonate at any moment and tells her to stay back. She argues her point, but Ren interjects, asking what they plan to do with the stones once they are collected. Keeping them nearby would be dangerous if they could explode without warning. She murmurs that Rory's space pocket might be a suitable place to dispose of them. The realization dawns on Rory almost immediately. She understands that she can hand them over to Lydia. She agrees and explains that all the stones should be placed in her space pocket. Time stands still there, and she knows a reliable way to dispose of them safely. Finn hesitates, clearly weighing the risks. Then he exhales sharply and gives in, agreeing at last. Rory takes off at once, already running as she calls back over her shoulder that she will go retrieve them. Rin moves quickly after her, telling her to slow down and insisting that he will accompany her. Rin and she scrambled over the battlefield, grabbing the stones and tossing them in her space pocket. Thanks to Rin, finding the stones was easy enough. But even so, they did not get to all of them in time passed. The war with Nadasha came to an end. And they returned to the Drakodom. The captured Nadasha prince, the priestess princess, and their entourage were to be questioned personally by Jade. She is curious what is happening but Jade and the others all seem super busy. She would love to help but unfortunately there was nothing a cat could help with. So she just lazed around in the garden. She gazes up at the cloudless blue sky and briefly checks out. After all, this garden floats above the clouds. Then she opens her eyes again and freezes. Something is flying above her. Panic grips her instantly. Before she can react, a massive white wolf lands lightly in front of her and begins walking toward her with calm, deliberate steps. She stares, unsure of what she is seeing. Is it a white dog? No, it is a wolf. Her gaze catches on the cloth wrapped around its head, and confusion deepens her unease. When Rin passes by her and moves toward the wolf, fear spikes. She panics and urgently tells her to stay back. It might eat him. Rin scoffs and calls her a silly girl. She asks why Kotaru would ever do that. Her eyes widen in shock. Kotaru? The wolf looks at her calmly and confirms that he is Kotaru. She stares in disbelief and asks, stunned, if he can talk. Rin answers casually that of course he can. She adds that she thought she had already told her. Kotaru had thrown himself into a body with the wrong affinity, which meant the idiot could not use his own powers properly. The explanation hits her all at once. The change is so drastic that it throws her off balance for a moment. She steps forward and welcomes him back warmly. He tells her that he is glad to be back. He explains that he searched the world over and finally found a properly fluffy host. He asks if it suits her taste. She pauses, wondering if everyone thinks she is a sucker for fluffy creatures. Still, there is no denying it, he really does look soft and fluffy. She asks if she may touch him. He replies that she may, by all means. And just like that, she launches herself forward and tumbles straight into him. She melts against his thick fur, all tension draining from her body. It is pure bliss. He tells Rin that he is glad she met Ruri as well. Rin immediately corrects him, saying she is no longer water, she is Rin. He remarks that it is a fine name. Her attention then shifts to the sack he is carrying. Curiosity sparks, and she asks what he is holding. He replies that it contains sovereigns for Ruri. Ruri blinks in surprise and asks if, despite being the fairy of wind, he really has money for all of this. He answers calmly that none of it was bought. It was all given. Given. She repeats, puzzled. Before she can think further, Joshua calls out to her and approaches. She asks him what is going on and remarks that she thought he was busy. She teasingly asks if he is skipping out on work again. He replies that if he did that now, his old man would kill him. His gaze then lands on the massive beast beside her. He pauses and asks what they have there. He wonders aloud if that is not a sacred beast from the Spiritum. She echoes the words in surprise, Spiritum? A sacred beast? Kotaro explains that they are hallowed creatures, revered by many and often worshipped. She asks if it is really that big of a deal. Joshua answers that it is more than just a big deal, though at this point, nothing she brings along surprises him anymore. He then gestures to the sack and asks what all that stuff is. Kotaro replies that they are souvenirs. The villagers gave them to him. Joshua glances around and notes that there does not seem to be anyone else nearby. She asks why that matters. He replies that he does not want anyone overhearing just like last time. He then leans closer and lowers his voice. He asks if she knows that during the war, they captured the priestess princess and the others who were summoned here with her. He says he wanted to give her an update. She straightens immediately, fully alert now, and urges him to go on. She has been wondering what is happening. He begins by saying that the priestess princess will not stop fussing, repeatedly demanding that they return Ruri-chan to her. Fortunately, no one has yet realized that she is referring to Ruri the cat. The entire situation comes as news to him, especially since he had been watching over her back in Nadasha. Even so, the priestess princess proves to be remarkably intense. Meanwhile, Asahi glares fiercely at the king and demands that he return Ruri at once. She accuses them of having brainwashed her and dares them to deny it. King Jade looks mildly surprised at first. Then he composes his features and responds calmly, saying that she appears to be searching for someone named Ruri. Unfortunately, that person has not been to the Dractum. Still, he adds, they would be willing to help her search. She snaps immediately, insisting that he cannot fool her. Once again, she demands that he give Ruri back. The king replies firmly that there is no such person here. She calls him a liar and declaring that the people in Nadasha told her that everyone here is a big, fat liar. They tricked her too, did they not? At first, King Jade listens patiently. He insists that he is not trying to deceive her. He asks what he could possibly do to make her believe him. Claus steps forward and calmly points out that it is impossible to prove the absence of someone. That observation only deepens the problem. Her companions begin whispering among themselves, uncertainty creeping into their voices. They wonder whether the king might be telling the truth after all. There is no proof that Nadasha was honest either, and the king appears genuinely kind and composed. The king continues, explaining that the Dractum would gain nothing from kidnapping someone named Ruri. Their forces are far stronger than Nadasha's, and there is no reason for them to provoke a conflict, nor do they have any cause to deceive her. He asks if that explanation clears things up. Instead of calming down, she fires back with another question. If that is the case, then why would he kidnap Ruri in the first place? The king looks taken aback. So does Kalsu, who calmly repeats that, as already stated, there would be no point in doing such a thing. She seizes on that answer immediately. Exactly. Then why did he do it? Under his breath, the king murmurs to Claus if he is making this very difficult to understand. Claus replies quietly that he is being perfectly clear and concise. Ruri lets out a quiet sigh. She cannot help but feel bad for the king, who is forced to reason with what feels like an impossible argument. Joshua finally adds that Euclus eventually loses patience with the circular exchange. Stepping forward, Euclus declares that it is quite enough. There is no point in continuing the discussion any further. Even Klaus says he couldn't agree more. They have suppressed her magic, so her charm spell is starting to wear off of the other four. They decide to let the effects run out completely and question them again afterward. That should be less exhausting on multiple levels. He finally relents and gives the order, instructing Finn to take them away. Before anyone can move, she tells him to wait. She asks what about Ruri. She is not finished yet. Euclus exhales sharply and speaks up. He says that she has been going on endlessly about how draconians are all liars. Is there truly anything they could say that would ever make her believe them? She can keep asking the same questions again and again, but because she believes they are deceitful by nature, she will never be satisfied with their answers. What, exactly, can she hope to achieve by continuing to question them? Silence falls over the space. The air feels heavy. Her hands tremble, but then suddenly, she points a finger at them and declares that this means they are admitting to kidnapping Ruri. As Joshua finishes explaining everything to Ruri, she looks utterly worn down. Her shoulders sag, and she admits that she does not even know what to say anymore. She says she is just so sorry. Joshua immediately tells her that it is not her fault. Even so, the guilt still weighs on her. He continues, explaining that this leads to the main point. Because their magic is being suppressed, the prince and the others should be coming to their senses soon. The realization hits her. That means they will no longer have that obsessive fixation on Asahi. She has never spoken to them while they were not under the influence of the charm. Asahi has never left them alone long enough for that. With the spell wearing off, she cannot help but wonder what they are thinking now. Joshua goes on to say that they will most likely be sent to Isekais. She repeats the name, confused. Joshua explains that it is a farming commune far from the capital. His Majesty has no intention of punishing them. In a sense, they are victims as well. Isekais always needs more hands. It is a place where people can live and work in peace. Once they are sent there, however, it will not be easy to see them again. If she wants to visit them, now is the only chance. He asks her what she thinks. She asks if she would be allowed to visit them. Joshua replies that he will make it happen. Lowering her voice, she admits that she does not want to see Asahi, but she does want to talk to the other four. He agrees. She hesitates, then asks if he is sure about this. She would have to meet them in her human form. Would that not make it seem as though the castle had been hiding her all along? Joshua replies calmly that he is not an intelligence agent for nothing. He assures her that he can come up with some vaguely believable lie or another. He then notices Finn and calls out to him, asking if something is wrong. Finn approaches at once, his pace hurried. Ruri notices the tension in his movements and remarks that he seems rushed. She asks what is happening. Finn says one of their captives, the priestess princess, has vanished. The color drains from Ruri's face in an instant. She points out the priestess princess was under constant guard. He replies yes, she was. There were guards stationed outside her room, and beyond her window was a cliff, so she couldn't have left that way. And yet she escaped. She asks how. Finn replies apparently they found another girl there in her place, the maid who had been delivering her meals. It seems the maid had helped her escape. During a meal delivery they traded outfits and she gave her castle ID pass to the priestess. She let the priestess princess leave while she stayed in the room. Joshua asks but why? Were they friends? He replies no, they didn't even meet before. Joshua says that makes even less sense. Why do something so rash for a stranger? She gets nothing from it. Finn says that is what he thought too. But then Finn looks like he wants to say something else and Joshua encourages him. Finn says she also said to take him to his majesty, claiming to be his dragon queen. Why would someone say that? Finn looked into it and found that she was a girl Joshua had recently brought here. Joshua asks what does he mean, but then he freezes, his face paling as it hits him. Those people he rescued from the traffickers. Finn replies yeah, she was one of them. Ruri asks them what are they talking about. Joshua says does she remember when he had to leave the castle for a while to search for someone outside the country? It wound up being the wrong person. He was told to look for the girl who seemed of a marriageable age with an unusual color hair and who was sold to the Dracodom port town. Even the soldiers with him were all like there's finally a partner for his majesty. Spirits were high, as she might imagine, so he thinks she probably overheard their gossip on the way back. And she got the wrong idea. That is his guess. Finn says for now he must report this to His Majesty and tells Joshua to join the search. Finn then leaves, and Rory says she cannot believe she ran away. She wasn't even gonna get punished. She asks Joshua what should they do. Joshua looks worried and says this is bad, the prisoners of war are all kept in Area 11. A maid's pass doesn't allow access to any level higher than Area 6. So anyone escaping would have to go down. The POWs were mostly soldiers conscripted against their will. They hold a grudge against the priestess princess who sparked the war. Not to mention that while the majority surrendered without resistance, there were still quite a few casualties. Joshua warns that if they find her, things could turn ugly very fast. The warning hits hard. Rory knows she cannot waste time. She has to find Asahi and quickly. But how? Launching a search mission would take too long. How does one even begin to find a single person in the chaos left behind by war? Then Lydia's face flashes through her mind. She remembers Lydia once saying that wind fairies are exceptionally good at finding people. And she has the over-fairy of wind. Without hesitation, she calls out to Kotaro and orders him to find Asahi immediately. He pauses and questions her command. Why should he look for her? She despises Asahi, does she not? He cannot quite fathom her reasoning. His questions catch her off guard. She falters, momentarily at a loss for words. Why does she have to go through this, for Asahi of all people? Part of her wants to deny it but another part knows the truth. She tells him that she is fine now. He counters sharply, reminding her that she was abandoned in the woods. She could have died. They all but tried to kill her. His words strike deep. Not long ago, the fairies asked her something similar. They had all wanted to know why she did not seek vengeance. She does want vengeance. That much, she cannot deny. And yet despite everything they are still old friends. They come from the same world. That alone feels like a bond strong enough to demand action, strong enough to compel her to help. But deep down, she knows it is more than just those excuses. Maybe if her life was still just as miserable as it used to be, she might hate Asahi every bit as much as she does the king and the head priest. Maybe then she would be content to let her dig her own grave. But then she smiles and tells him she doesn't want anything more to do with Asahi. She doesn't even want to see her face. But she doesn't wish for her to disappear from this world or to drop dead or anything like this. She doesn't care about her, but she still wants her to be okay. She smiles nervously after explaining and says for now, can he just find her? After a moment of hesitation, he relents if that is what she wishes for. He uses his powers and tells them she is heading downward towards area marked as 11. The news immediately sends Joshua into panic mode. Of all places, why does it have to be there? Meanwhile, Asahi moves down the stairs alone. Each step echoes softly beneath her feet. As she descends, a memory surfaces, the moment she traded places with that girl. She had never expected it to turn out that way. At the time, she barely understood what the girl had been saying. Still, she remembers thinking she seemed kind. She realizes she has come quite far down. The unfamiliar corridors stretch ahead, and for a moment she hesitates, unsure where to go next. Voices drift toward her. She follows the sound and soon comes upon a small group of people eating. The smell of food makes her stomach twist. Only then does she remember that she left without eating the meal she brought with her. She wonders if she could get something to eat here. Normally, someone would notice. Normally, someone would ask if she is hungry and bring her food without question. But this time, no one is with her. At first, no one pays her any attention. Then a man suddenly stops eating. He stares at her, his gaze sharpening as recognition creeps in. Slowly, he stands and says that she is the priestess princess. Others question him, asking if he is sure. He insists that he is. He says he has seen her face up close. The murmurs shift. People begin to whisper, wondering why she is dressed like a castmate. Someone scoffs, asking whether they are expected to believe she is working here. The mood changes abruptly. Anger bubbles to the surface. Their lives are in ruins and the priestess princess gets to walk around freely, even taking a job. She steps back instinctively, shock written all over her face. She does not understand why they are angry with her. Then she feels it, hostility thick in the air. Panic grips her. She turns and runs. Shouts erupt behind her. Footsteps pound the ground as they chase her. She does not understand why they are pursuing her, only that they are. Panic overtakes her thoughts. Her breath comes fast and shallow. Suddenly, her foot slips. She crashes to the ground. They surround her in seconds, looming over her, their expressions hard and furious. She looks up at them, trembling, and asks why they are so angry. One of them snaps back that the entire war was her idea. He demands to know why she is even asking. Confused, she insists that the king said they had to go to war to rescue Ruri. They ask her sharply who she even is. Her face brightens instantly as she answers that she is Ruri's friend. The response only enrages them further. One man yells at her to stop messing with them. Who cares about her friend? They were the ones risking their lives. The words hit her harder than she expects. She remembers how she was always loved wherever she went. This is not how things are supposed to go. She tries to reason with him, telling him she has to find Ruri. His face twists with rage. He shouts that his little brother died on that battlefield. His hand lifts, ready to strike. Then a violent surge of wind explodes outward. The force tears through the space, whipping clothes and dust into the air. They cry out, shielding their faces, stumbling backward as the gale overwhelms them. And just like that, her vision goes dark. Meanwhile, one of the soldiers reports to His Majesty that the priestess princess is safely in custody. Ruri is in Jade's arms, her eyes find Kotaro. She offers him a small, grateful smile and thanks him. He smiles back and says he is glad to be of service. Rin, however, calls out sharply. She says he did that on purpose. Kotaro feigns ignorance, asking what she could possibly mean. Rin accuses him outright. He could have rescued her the moment he found her. Instead, he left her alone and defenseless. With the priestess princess back in custody, things at the castle have finally calmed down a little. Peace returned to the Dracodome, except the king and head priest are still in Nadasha. They could still summon a new priestess princess. Ariane thinks she should probably do something, but the maid who let Asahi escape was also captured and will receive the proper punishment. However, the king still frowns and asks why would someone who has never met him before become convinced she was the Dragon Queen. Asahi and her groupies will all be sent to Idokra soon. On the other hand, Joshua tells her all those men must have really terrified the priestess princess. Apparently, she cowers in fear anytime someone comes near her cell, but other than that, she is in good shape. Thanks to the magic suppression, her charm has totally worn off the others. Joshua asks her that she could meet with them now, but there's one problem. She asks him, there is? With a questioning gaze, he tells her it has been deemed dangerous to leave the priestess princess by herself, so she's confined in the same room as the others now, she realizes, which means she wouldn't be able to avoid seeing her. He says, yes, exactly, and asks her what will she do. She softly says, it is better this way. If she sees her one last time, she can say her piece. Once Joshua makes sure the coast is clear, he takes off her bracelet, and the moment it leaves her wrist, she returns to her human form. He points at the door in front of him, telling her that this is the room. Ruri stands there for a moment, nervous about what kind of reaction she is about to face. As soon as she steps inside, Asahi is sitting curled up a little away from the others. The moment she notices Ruri, she pauses for a second before suddenly rushing toward her with her arms open. Before she can reach her, Joshua steps forward and grabs her hand, telling her to take it easy. Asahi immediately starts struggling, glaring at him and telling him to let go and stop getting in her way. Then she turns to Ruri and points out that she is here after all, calling everyone liars. Ruri softly asks her why she did all of this. Asahi stares at her in confusion and asks what exactly she means. Ruri lets out a tired sigh, but then her expression hardens. She glares at Asahi and accuses her of starting a war and letting the king and the priest use her like a fiddle. Asahi argues that she only did it to save her and that she could not have done it alone. Ruri places a hand on her chest and asks if she really looks like someone who needs saving. She reminds Asahi that she had already warned her before, that it was all a plot by the king and the priest and that they were only using her. The sudden rise in her voice makes Ruri stop for a moment, and the others in the room look at her clueless. One of the girls speaks up, asking what she means by a plot. Ruri looks at them in disbelief and asks if none of them have heard any of this before. Then she mutters that fine, if Asahi also needs to hear it again, she will start from the beginning. She tells everyone to listen properly. She gave them the full rundown of everything she told Asahi that night. They listened with looks of shock on their faces. Obviously, Asahi had not bothered to share this with them before. And as for Asahi, her eyes glistened with tears as she cries out that the king and priests, they tricked her. How awful. Ruri stares at Asahi like she cannot believe the nerve of this girl. Before she can stop herself, her hand swings up and slaps Asahi across the cheek. The sharp sound fills the room. Everyone freezes, watching with stunned expressions. Even Asahi looks stunned, like she cannot believe she just got slapped. Ruri snaps at her, asking if she really thinks she has the right to call anyone else awful. She demands to know if Asahi has any idea how many people died because of this war. When that prisoner mob attacked her, she saw it with her own eyes, right? How much they were suffering, what tragedies they had been through. She should have learned that firsthand. Asahi quietly argues that it was the king and his men who caused the war. She asks why those people were angry at her. Ruri tells her it was because she went along with everything without thinking for herself. She let them use her as their symbol. Asahi looks at her with hurt in her eyes and says she still does not understand. Ruri tells her to stop acting clueless and use her head for once. Natasha summoned them into this world against their will. To Ruri, that sounds like kidnapping. She asks why Asahi believed everything so easily. Does she not have any instinct for protecting herself? Asahi weakly argues that they looked like they needed her help. Ruri fires back, asking if crimes suddenly become acceptable just because someone needs help. Of course not. She tells Asahi it is time to start thinking for herself. Otherwise, everything will keep ending like this. Ruri tells her to forget it. Where they are now, nobody is going to keep feeding her selfish behavior like before. Reality is going to hit her whether she likes it or not. Asahi quietly asks if Ruri really thinks she is selfish. Ruri tells her there is no going home for either of them, so she needs to pull herself together. But Asahi suddenly smiles brightly, saying that is exactly what the king and priest said too. She says it is fine because they will find a way home someday. To her, this is like a video game. She has read enough stories to know someone will figure something out eventually. Ruri slaps her again. Asahi stares at her, hurt, saying that actually hurt. Ruri says, yeah, she bet it did. Because this is the real world. Sure, it's similar to games in some ways, like magic and people with animal ears, but this is their reality. And the world here doesn't revolve around them like they are the main characters. There are no embassies here and things do not work the same way as they do back home. They have no family or relatives here, no one to fall back on. That is the kind of world they live in now and have to survive in. She cannot just put it down when she is tired of it like a video game, and there is no way home. Everyone looks shaken. Ruri can tell her words hit hard. Maybe reality had never fully sunk in for them before. If she had been kept comfortable this whole time, fed, clothed, protected, maybe she would have stayed blind too. But now they understand. Or at least she hopes they do. Then Asahi's eyes suddenly light up. She says it is okay. As long as she has Ruri, she can handle anything. They are in this together. Ruri grits her teeth and tells her clearly that she will never see her again. Asahi looks shocked and asks why. Ruri stares at her, like the audacity she even has to ask. She asks why she should be responsible for her. Asahi smiles and reminds her that they are in this together. She says she will try harder too. But Ruri tells her plainly that she does not want to be with her. Asahi's eyes fill with tears. She asks what is wrong and says if something is bothering her, she should just talk about it. Ruri can only think that she already has. Again and again. And none of it ever got through. However, the others don't process with the brain of Asahi, they suddenly kneel in front of her and apologize. A few days later, she hears that they are being sent to Isekais. All of them start apologizing and saying they are glad she is alive, even if there was magic messing with their heads, what they did was inexcusable. They doubt she will ever forgive them, but they feel so bad about how they treated her. She asks everyone to get up please, this is awkward. She wonders if to forgive or not to forgive, but when she remembers all that, it is hard to respond. She thought she had reached the point of being able to rise above it all, but so much for that. She then asks them with a deep breath, what does it feel like to be charmed? The boy replies when he thought of Asahi, it put him in a pleasant daze. It was always like he was in a trance, maybe. At the same time, he could tell she wasn't acting quite like the rest of them, and the fact that Asahi gave her so much attention despite that really rubbed him the wrong way, and his emotions overcame his better judgment. It never occurred to him that what he was doing was wrong. It is okay to attack her because she's different from them. That is how he saw it. She then asks him, what about now? He replies, it is like his head finally cleared up, and he feels incredibly guilty thinking back on what they did was terrifying. She tells him that is enough and not to get her wrong, she's not forgiving them, but there is no use in dwelling on what has been done. That helps no one. She and they already have enough to think about as it is. She thinks it, she cannot just go like, it's cool, they were charmed, she gets it. She's not that mature, but if not for the charm spell, they never would have been capable of doing what they did to her. She realizes that now, much to her chagrin. She admits she cannot forgive them, but she accepts their apology. The man looks at her and says thank you with sincere gaze. She ends up shaking his hand. A few days later, she got word that they were off to Isekais. Esahi yelled something as she left their room, but she ignored her. She figured any other conversation was just going to be the same old thing again. She later tells Grandma she was able to reason with the others with the charm gone, but she was honestly surprised. She didn't think a charm spell could alter someone's personality so much. Esahi's charm led to her living a sheltered life, part of her worries that she might not be able to handle the sudden change in environment. The grandma says, she got sent to Isekais, didn't she? Then she will be fine. She tells him the lord of that place is Finn's father. She looks shocked and says, really? She explains it is home to plenty of laborers working away from home as well as orphans. It is a land with such big farms, it is called the Dracodom's breadbasket. It is the perfect place for a summoned outsider to work. There's a lot of work to be done, of course, but the lord and lady are perfectly capable, so she is sure they will be fine. She then asks Ruri if everything is good this time. She did not run off leaving some cryptic note again, did she? Ruri replies, oh no, she has covered her bases just fine. She admits since King Jade is visiting the Spiritum, she told him she would be at Chelsa's in the meantime, in person, loud and clear. Chelsa says she is glad to hear it. Well, what will be, will be. That goes for Esahi too. And tells her not to worry about it. Ruri says she just hopes some hard farm labor will be the wake-up call she needs. The war with Nada Shah has settled down and peace returned to the Dragon Kingdom. As for her, nothing has changed, enjoying peace in the form of a cat. The king lifts Ruri into his arms, holding her close against his chest and moving his fingers through her hair. His voice is soft as he tells her Klaus, Finn and he will be leaving the castle for a while. He tells her that if anything happens while he is gone, she should tell Isekais and the others. Ruri tilts her head up at him and asks if he is going somewhere. He explains that from now on they will be heading to the Spirit Kingdom. There is a meeting between the 4 allied nations, and because of that, they will be gone for a couple of days. He tells her to be on her best behavior while he is away. Ruri immediately blushes when his fingers move to her cheek and gently cup it. She tells him it is not. Like she is a child. But Jade points out that she has a habit of disappearing without warning. Because of that, he says he cannot help worrying that something might happen to her while he is away. Beside them, Klaus watches with a nervous smile. Ruri hesitates for a moment, not knowing what to say. Jade notices that hesitation, and a lonely look passes through his eyes. Then, almost hopefully, he suggests that maybe Ruri should come with them. Klaus reacts at once. Absolutely not. His answer comes so fast that it is obvious he has been expecting that suggestion. He reminds Jade that both Finn and he will be attending the meeting too. That means there would be no one left who could properly stay by Ruri's side. Jade pauses. He cannot argue with that. Klaus is right. Jade sighs and turns back to Ruri. Oh well. It is not like they can leave her here by herself. He starts wondering aloud if maybe someone else could stay with her, but Ruri quickly says she does not mind if someone else stays by her side. Jade answers that yes, they already know. Klaus cuts in and says that is not the problem. Before the conversation can continue, another attendant approaches and informs them that it is time to leave. Jade tightens his hold around Ruri one last time, hugging her close before finally, reluctantly, letting her go. Ruri looks up at him and tells him she is planning to visit Chelsa, so she might not be at the castle when he comes back. Jade says okay and tells her he understands. He pats her on the head gently and tells her to be careful on the way there. Then he promises that he will bring a lot of gifts for her when he comes back. The others start calling for His Majesty again. Jade keeps glancing back at Ruri even as he leaves, clearly reluctant to go. But eventually, he finally leaves. Later, while walking through the castle garden, Ruri strolls slowly as she looks up at the sky. High above, dragons fly across the sky. She wonders if Jade and the others are already among them. After taking some time to recover from everything that happened during the war, she decided to stop by her part-time job. After that, she writes to Kotaro and asks him to take her to Chelsea. They are already here within a few hours. By the time they arrive, Ruri is still clinging tightly to him, her eyes wide. She says that if it had just been her, it would have taken her a couple of days. Kotaro looks smug at that. He proudly points out that it is because he is a high-ranked wind spirit. Ruri can only think that it is exactly what she would expect from a high-ranked wind spirit. There are a lot of things she wants to talk to Chelsea about. About Asahi. About Nadarsia. About the war. And finally something she really wanted to discuss. Now sitting across from Chelsea, Ruri fidgets in place. She looks hesitant. Then she finally admits the truth. At the castle, she has been hiding the fact that she is human. And all this time, she has been living as a cat. She avoids her gaze after a very late confession. Chelsea's mouth falls open. What? Why? Ruri quickly explains that it is not because she wants to. Then she tells her everything. Chelsea crosses her arms and groans. Ruri explains that Joshua and the Yuclays have already found out, but they kept it a secret for her. She admits that she thinks she should tell Jade the truth soon. Chelsea immediately agrees. She says he is right, but Ruri admits she is scared of his reaction. Chelsea lets out a sigh and tells her thinking that wouldn't get her anywhere. She will have to see his reaction in person. She's not Claude, so she cannot help her. Ruri gives a stiff smile, knowing she cannot argue with that. There's no point in thinking about it. Chelsea then tells her she can worry about it if she gets a bad reaction, plus she cannot keep it a secret forever. If she keeps overthinking instead of taking action, nothing will ever change. She ends up smiling and saying yes, she will try to bring it up when she returns to the capital. Chelsea says that sounds good, looking at her sudden brightened energy, and tells her not to worry about it. Their attitude wouldn't suddenly shift because of this. But then Chelsea suddenly pauses. Her expression changes. Ruri notices immediately. Chelsea senses something. Someone has entered her barrier. Only people Chelsea allows should be able to enter. That means it must be someone she knows. Chelsea wonders if it is a customer. A knock sounds at the door. Chelsea gets up, feeling the familiar mana on the other side. She opens the door and quickly says, "Oh my, I am honored to have you here." Ruri freezes. That tone. It is so polite that it's her first time hearing it. She wonders who is it. Then King Jade asks if Ruri is here. Ruri goes completely pale, her entire body frozen. Why is Jade here? Without waiting for permission, Jade casually steps inside, asking again if Ruri is inside. Chelsea answers yes. She is already here. Meanwhile, Ruri is panicking, internally screaming. Then Rin asks if she is really okay with this. Ruri turns to Rin, confused. Rin points out wasn't she hiding the fact that she is human? She blinks at her, dumbfoundedly. And then the panic doubles. This is bad. Where is her bracelet? She starts touching the table. But her bracelet is not there. Where did it go? Chelsea calls out that His Majesty has arrived. Ruri panics harder and yells for her to wait. She checks her dimensional storage. Not there. Her hands clutch her hair. Where is it? Why is it gone? One of the fairies tells her they saw her put it in her pocket. Ruri quickly checks. But it is already too later. Just then Chelsea enters and looks around. She cannot find her. She asks where Ruri went. Then Ruri comes out from under the table. Back in cat form. That was close. Chelsea whispers sharply, asking if she was not planning to confess. So why is she back in cat form? Ruri quickly lifts her paws, meowing in protest. Begging her not to say anything. Ruri is grateful to Chelsea, but she knows she made up her mind, but it is too sudden. She needs a little more time to emotionally prepare. Klaus, looking like he is forcing down his irritation, explains that while they were on the way back from the Spirit Kingdom, they started talking about Ruri. And then His Majesty suddenly announced that he wanted to see her. Jade nods openly and says yeah, he really wanted to see her. Then he picks Ruri up in his arms. He says he came to pick her up. The way he looks at her is affectionate. Klaus stands at the doorway, looking exhausted. The others look like they might faint. Klaus says Ruri was not going anywhere. So there was no reason to rush all the way here. The Dragon King's full-speed dash is unreal. Chelsea offers to prepare tea. Meanwhile, Jade sits down with Ruri resting on his lap like that is where she belongs. Chelsea glares at Ruri before leaving. Outside, Chelsea asks Klaus if they are always like this. Klaus says yes. Chelsea smiles to herself. She guesses it is fine. Then Chelsea suddenly turns to Klaus and brings up something else. She says she heard he said something strange to Ruri before she entered the castle. Klaus asks what she is talking about. Chelsea reminds him. Didn't he tell Ruri he was glad she was not human, and didn't he say that right before she entered the castle? Chelsea says she clearly wrote in her letter that Ruri is unfamiliar with this world's common sense. She told him not to say confusing things. Otherwise it makes the dragon race sound like they have some superiority complex. Klaus pauses. Thinking back, he remembers. At that time, he had just gotten Joshua's report about Natasha. What he meant was that he was glad the beloved child was not like the high priest. But because of the timing, it came out wrong. Ruri has been listening from behind the wall the whole time. Chelsea turns to her and asks if that clears up the misunderstanding. Ruri looks flustered. But inside, relief and happiness fill her. She says yes and thanks her sincerely. In her heart, she decides that the next time she visits the royal capital, she will buy Chelsea a gift. Later, Jade is flying in his dragon form. Ruri sits on Kotaro while running on the land. Suddenly Jade speaks to her through telepathy. It is her first time experiencing his telepathic communication. His hot voice echoes in her head. She then admits to him she has a secret she has been keeping, and will he please listen to it when they get back home. He asks a secret and tells her why cannot she say it now. Ruri looks nervous and mumbles that it is complicated. And that there is something Joshua also needs to explain. Jade immediately asks if Joshua already knows, and he immediately pouts, which doesn't escape her notice. Then she quickly adds that it might be a problem if he falls out of shock. Jade laughs. He says in that case, he is looking forward to seeing how shocking it is. Ruri thinks to herself that he is going to be terribly shocked. That was the huge decision she had made back when she was still up in the sky. Back at the castle, Joshua arrives and looks around. He asks where His Majesty is. Isekais tells him His Majesty still has not returned. Then he explains that Jade contacted him. He said he was going to pick Ruri up. Joshua pauses and asks Ruri is out too. Isekais replies she is visiting Chelsea. Joshua says he sees. Thinking about it, he figures it makes sense. He thinks, like how the shrine princess was sent to Isekais, she probably has things she wants to talk about with Grandma. Joshua lets that go. But then his eyes move to Ewan. He asks what he is doing there. Ewan is sitting there casually reading papers. But when he looks up his eyes are fierce. And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And as always, thank you God for another day on earth, and giving us more chances to right our wrongs.